Through the prayers of the Holy Fathers, of Jesus Christ, our God, have mercy on us and save us. Amen. Good evening. For those new here, my name is Father Joseph Sladen. I've worked in Orthodox apologetics since 1998, and I'm the founder of NFTU, True Orthodox and Ecumenical News, since 2004. We've been in the apologetic space here on Facebook since 2016, since 2018, and if you appreciate what we do here, please like and subscribe. Today we do our live Q&A session where you can get your questions answered live as well as member-requested video reviews. So let's get started. And as always, if you want to jump on the screen to ask a question, make a comment, issue a debate challenge, just click the link on the top of the channel. As you can see, we've got our chat open today. Again, we are using the amazing Frozen Cafe. I've included a link in the sorry about that. I've included a link in the chat here. So just head on over and let's get started. If you'd like to send us a super chat, which of course we will put live on the screen, feel free. We do appreciate those, and they do help keep the channel running. So I'm going to get started. We have a pretty eventful list of things to talk about today, as you can probably tell. First off, obviously, we're going to talk about the most recent and horrible thing, which is the Olympics in France and what happened there. I am not going to share a bunch of pictures because first off, they're disgusting, and second off, they're disgusting. And so, good evening, everyone in the who's here. If you want to jump in and join the free chat, it's on the cafe. Otherwise, we'd appreciate it here. If you want to send super chats this way, you can. These things really do help out. We are actually we're actually almost in what we would say is just in the beginning of monetization on YouTube. So this is looking like this is going to be something we're going to be able to do more permanently. It's gone on a year now since we've done this, and we've got other things that are working with us. We've got the again, we are now producing incense, and I'm trying to produce it as fast as I can. So good evening to everyone in the chat. Okay, and that's the dog. Very, very nice dog. But in any case, so starting off, again, we're talking about the Olympics, how shocking and horrifying and anti-Christian they've become. But more importantly, what happens? But, that evening, the entire city apparently goes black. Complete blackout, except for the Church of the Sacred Heart, a Roman Catholic church in Paris. And that's the only thing that apparently stayed lit up. Now, obviously, it's a heretical church. We have no doubt of that. But I think the symbolism is there because most French, at least have some identification as, a Roman Catholic, etc. The message was there after that absolute display of sodomite horror. The message had to be there. For those who don't know, the opening ceremonies of the Olympics in France included, besides drag queen and drag men dances with children, also included a mockery of the Last Supper using degenerates in place of Christ and the apostles. So, quite horrifying. Again, if you want to join in the chat, we'd really appreciate it. Since we do have that handy chat at frozenoscafe.com forum at php/chat. You can jump on there, and we're live, which is why it's on the screen. And I understand people really do not. Sometimes there's some folks who probably don't want to use the chat, but part of the reason why I do this is because it is a resource that we can use ourselves. That is our resource. In the same way that NFTU is our, it's not just my thing, it's our thing. I see it as an our kind of thing for our community. So I know that sounds awful to some people. You want to stay on YouTube or stay on Discord or so on and so forth. But we're going to see most likely within the next few months that mass censorship ramping up again, and this time it's going to be AI powered. People are not going to be ready for it, and we should be. And it's kind of sad that people are, I kind of feel like people are intentionally trying to do the opposite of what I'm suggesting, and I'm suggesting it for good reasons. But in any case, speaking of which, let's head over. I'm going to switch over to the NFTU page because we have some new and interesting stories there that we've put up this week, and we'll try to cover them one by one. So if you give me just a moment, I will get to the first one. I'll get to the biggest one, actually, I should say. And so let's do that. Okay, no, cancel. Mm-hmm. So this has been the talk of the week lately. Greek police plan new assault on Esphigmenou Monastery. This has been ongoing for the past week. There's been, can just read the article. There's been a great deal of unrest since yesterday in the monastery of Esphigmenou on the Holy Mountain, as Elas, or the Greek police, prepare a large-scale eviction operation on the premises of Athos. The document was submitted to the monastery by a bailiff, and since then, the 118 elders of the monastery have been on alert. In fact, according to thestoday.gr, supporters of the Holy Monastery collect food for the monks in case of an emergency. In the document of the Carius police station, the Greek police are asking for permission from the Holy Mountain from the Holy Supervision, that's the people in charge of Mount Athos, to launch a large-scale operation. The monks of the monastery of Esphigmenou have, since 1972, held a tough stance against the leadership of the, quote-unquote canonical church and cut off all the ties with the ecumenical patriarchate. Abbot Methodius, one of those convicted for extensive fights in 2013, told thestoday.gr that, quote, "We are ready to defend the monastery to the death. Here is our spiritual homeland. We were born here spiritually, and here we will die. The only thing the police do is, as employees, I don't understand them. They're obliged to do what they're told, and they're chasing us." So this story has been building up. Here. Hello to everyone who is joining in. If you want to call in, the link is at the top of the chat window. In white, you can click that link and join the chat if you'd like. If you have your own comments, thoughts, etc. Also, as I mentioned, joining in the discussion, you can literally join in on the cafe, which is live right now, or you can send a super chat, and we will read your chat live here. Or finally, as I said, if you want to come in and have a discussion, feel free to click on the link at the top of the chat. So greetings to everyone who is, who's here. And so that was one of the big news stories of the week. Another one would be the passing of Metropolitan Dimostin. Of the Romanian True Orthodox Church, and this occurred this past Saturday, not this Saturday, but the Saturday beforehand. He was 96 years old, and he suffered over 11 years of persecution from the Romanian state to go to the new calendar, which he refused. So he died. It's an amazing time to be in the presence of literal confessors of orthodoxy, but we are. And so, in any case, that's something that we were going to cover. So that's one thing. One of the more interesting things that happened this week is we kind of jumped on one of the non-Chalcedonian, the Monophysite channels. We were in the chat. They were a little upset with us because of an episode that we had done previously that I'm sure a lot of you know about. And so we went to the point where we would be possibly having either a formal or informal debate with the fathers of the Coptic, or I think it's the Coptic Answers channel. We wrote them on Friday for a preliminary greeting and possibly discussion of how to do it. And we haven't heard back yet. However, I did write that on Friday afternoon, I want to say. So it's very possible that they don't check that email till Monday. So we'll see what happens with that. So let me see here. I'm trying to think in terms of questions and comments that were asked of me this week. And if I have forgotten any, please write them to me, use the chat. I really do recommend it, especially if you're already registered. I am busy dealing with spam bots every other day, trying to get rid of them. It seems like a lot of new people that are joining are indeed spam bots, and it's work. And what I don't want is it to be wasted work. Bringing back the cafe has been work for quite a few people. And so I really appreciate people coming in, people commenting, people putting in. There was a recent donation of a few more documents to our document library there. And I hate to sound like a broken record. I really do. It's just that it seems like every other day someone is trying to pull me into something on Discord or something on Twitter. And it's kind of sad that people want to spend more time outside in heterodox organizations and groupings as well. Okay, Saba's here. Welcome, Saba. Hello?
Hello.
I can't hear you, Saba.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Nope, there's still no sound on my end. Let me see something here, maybe.
My microphone is on.
I don't know. That's odd. Let me just... Give me a second, Saba. Okay, so can you hear Saba then? Okay, then that means there's an issue with me. Give me just a moment. Okay, Saba, can you say something?
Hello.
I hear you now. Very good. Thank you. All right, that was on my end. Sorry about that, folks. But again, how can I? What can we do for you today, Saba?
I don't know if you mentioned this already, but Metropolitan Demetrios' grandmother proposed this week, Paraskevi.
Okay, yeah. What her name was? Patristic?
Yes.
Okay. Well, memory eternal to her, and God willing, the things that she passes and reposes in the place of peace and light, and eternal memory to her. I vaguely heard that. I know it's one of those things that I scroll on Facebook very fast to get off Facebook. So I did see that, but it didn't quite register. So that is useful. Well, thank you for telling us, Saba. Really appreciate that.
I guess also news, Hockner enthroned a bishop today in Seattle.
Really?
Metropolitan Ignatius of
is
Seattle.
There any news? Is that on Hockner.org or anything like that?
They posted on their Telegram channel.
Of course. No, I find this abhorrent. It's not that I don't want to be mean, and it's not you, obviously, but it's just I'm finding it really awful that all people want to do is continue atomizing into other people's systems and then wondering why we can't build anything as true Orthodox together. Well, I can tell you why. It's because everybody is literally falling for corporate lines, and they want to create their own little corporate thing. Not realizing they are still being controlled by the system, and so if I can't find Hockner's news, and it doesn't appear that I can, let me see. I'm going to try the website homb.org, which I never checked. But if it's not there, I'm never going to see it. A lot of people aren't going to see it. Yeah, it tells you to go to Telegram. Okay, yeah, good luck with that. But it's foolish. You would get more people. And I will say this because the cafe gets hundreds and hundreds of hits a day. You would get more people who already know what they're looking for because they go to places like NFT and the cafe. Hiding it on your Telegram means that only the people following it on your Telegram are going to see it. Hiding it on your Discord means that only the people on your Discord are going to see it. It's foolish. I think that the entire arms race on Telegram, and because Telegram's essentially a private set of servers, just like Element. I use Element Matrix. I'm not setting up a group on it. Why? Because that would limit the group to that tiny membership. We need to create things that are comprehensive, and we're not doing that. We're choosing not to, and that's just sad. Your thoughts?
I don't really care for Telegram myself, but
I haven't used it. Last I remember, and I understand it's supposedly changed now, but last I remember, there was some vile adult stuff, and I was like, "This is useless. I don't want to use this unless you use some version for teens or something." People don't realize that they're being manipulated by these companies, these corporations. People are like, "Well, what about Signal?" Well, Signal was actually made by the CIA. Surprise. So, yeah, the whole thing is kind of ridiculous. Anyway, but if people don't want to join the cafe chat, which I clearly see nobody has, because it's just my name there in the middle.
There's a few people in the chat, Father. I think you might need to reload your page.
What?
There's been quite a few messages, and there's like 8 people in the chat. I can't draw my glasses.
I'm resetting.
Like 10. Yeah.
Oh wow, nice. Thank you. Sorry if I was being mean here, but I guess I'm slow and something didn't work. So greetings to everyone in the chat, and I will start putting up comments because wow, this is okay. Okay, Benedetto de Norte says good evening to all. Takis Benedict 143 says, is there any content on the channel on the site on how to prepare a reader service Typica at home? God willing, I will do this video this week. I do apologize. Let me see here. If not, would the fathers be interested in making a new video? We actually are. We just haven't gotten to it yet. I'm going to try. Let me see here. What you're telling the only thing Olympic Games, the thing created by pagans was entirely pagan? Well, worse, it was entirely degenerate and pagan. Good evening, Father Antonios. I see you there. Also, good evening, everyone. T-Con F says hello, Cafe Reader. Good evening, blessed Father. I know Cafe Reader sent me an email, and I'm not sure how long it is, but we can try to do a review on that video. Saba says, Benedetto da Nortia sei italiano, parlo un po' di italiano. Good to see you, Father Simeon. I might be visiting you here in 2 months. As I know, I don't think he's a big fan of visitors, but you definitely want to call in advance. Cloister asks, good evening, Father. This may have been answered on previous broadcasts, but would you happen to know if it's still possible to enter Esphigmenou as a novice since all these troubles? Have you heard of the Brotherhood growing at all? Thank you. No, it does. People do get in. You probably have to talk to the Friends of Esphigmenou, etc., and then eventually speak to get the blessing of the abbot. I will say that 30 years ago, there were 120 monks. Actually, I think 110 monks. And we've had lots of deaths, lots of attacks from the state, and they are at 118 monks now. That isn't possible unless they're actually quietly growing. But I have no idea how they do it. Maybe it's they go from one monastery to another. I don't know. But I know it is possible, and there are people who are taken in by the Brotherhood. Benedetto de Norcia says, sono italiano americano, lo parlo un poco di italiano. Okay, well, that's cool. That's good to hear. Anche un poco di italiano. I'm here. Ditch social media and go back to print. Why? Why does it always have to be like the extreme? It's like, okay, we're going to get rid of social media. Let's live like the Amish. Like, okay, why not just stop using the technology that was designed to make you an addict and use technology not designed to make you an addict as opposed to becoming a Luddite? I don't understand the logic behind here. Why not both? And let me see, Orthodox traditionalists. I know you like Telegram. I'm sorry, my opinions will not change. on Telegram, on Discord, and stuff like that. I find them just untrustworthy. But I understand people like them. So, for everyone who is in the YouTube chat that is not on the cafe chat, may God bless you, and then the Father and the Holy Spirit, amen. And for those who are clergy, Christ is in our midst. But in any case, so we're live here again in the cafe chat. People are popping in. I'm stupid, so I didn't know that, and but I have refreshed it. So let's see here. What else is going on? So we have talked. I mentioned this. If you didn't catch this earlier, maybe I can just find it. Give me a second. I'm going to see if I can just find the moment where we kind of jumped in on a broadcast of Subdeacon Daniel Kakish. Give me just a moment here, and I'm going to see if we can find it. What the heck? Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. Give me one moment. Okay, so basically, let me see here. I'm getting to that cloister. Give me just a moment. I'm actually going to share the screen on it. All right, so this was because of the fact that I knew that this was going to be a weird situation. Let me see if I can. Why isn't it doing what it's supposed to do? Hold on a moment. There we go. Okay, so let me share this tab. We'll get started. Apparently, this was 4 days ago that this happened, so it's a good question you had there, Cloister. We're going to
even before that. So Abuna Joseph Suwaden, he has a question. Tfaddal Abuna.
So yeah,
in the meantime, as he's typing the question, maybe we could
I knew what I was doing here.
Unless either of you, Abai, if you have anything. Oh, he has. Okay. Do the fathers here believe the Chalcedonian Eastern Orthodox are part of the church? Are they Orthodox?
What's behind that question?
So I didn't hear you, Abuna. Sorry.
What? Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Why does Father ask that question?
I don't know.
Father is from the true Orthodox, the true genuine Orthodox Church, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, could we get a clarification on why that question is being asked like that?
Sure. Let's see what he will say.
Is it because of the reading of this letter? Is it in context of the reading of this letter?
I'm not sure. Let's see. Abuna, if you could scroll.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
We're not avoiding the question. We just want to know what Father's thinking is there.
Let me put him at 125.
Okay, I just want to know. I just want to know the Father's position on whether Chalcedonian Orthodox are Orthodox. So I think he's asking it in a vacuum, not necessarily in context.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you, Father, for that clarification. Father Anthony, do you want to take this one, or?
I think it's very clear that the fact that for all of these centuries, our families and our traditions have not been in communion. And being led by the Holy Spirit for all of these centuries, whether we like it or not, everybody can have their own personal opinion as to how the Holy Spirit is free to be able to work incredibly powerful things for the sake of the kingdom in every single one of the traditions, but we're not in communion.
Okay, with that, I will mention, of course, member chats always get on. Sounds like he's uncomfortable with the question. He is uncomfortable with the question. And it was actually a setup question. And I think he knew it was a setup question, because what I was getting at was ultimately, and I will say Bishop Enoch, was kind of feeding on this one. Basically, if they admit we're Orthodox, then they have to. Then the question becomes, well, if you guys have anathemas against each other, well, which one's right then? Like, how can they both be Orthodox? And so, yeah, that silence was loud, Norman and Nestor. Yeah, it's true. Absolutely. But we'll continue because they actually get a little more heated.
And whether we like it or not, we have to face the fact that by declaring that we are not in communion with each other, despite our desire to be in communion, the mere fact that we know that we are not in communion is an indication that when each one of us says that we are part of the one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, we mean our families and those who are in communion with us. Now, whether we like it or not, that has to be the stance, because we trust in those who came before us and who have defended the faith. So if when I'm being asked who is part of the one Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, I must remain faithful to the church that I belong to, and I trust in the holy people who came before me and defended the faith ultimately, for that to mean that those who are in communion with me are part of that body. But I think there is something to be said about how it is that when we speak of how the Holy Spirit is capable of working in each other's churches, there is absolutely no denial that I recognize a big part of who I am and what I believe in my brothers who are outside of my traditions. And I recognize that most among the Orthodox. And I don't necessarily recognize it as much among others who may give themselves the title of Christian. Now, how do we deal with that without giving into false ecumenism? What I mean by false ecumenism is, can't we all just hold hands and sing kumbaya and hug each other and kiss each other and just, whoever says the name Jesus must be as equal as I am? That's not the kind of false ecumenism that we're preaching. But there is something about how it is. At the same very church who has handed down to me the faith that was handed down by Christ himself to the apostles, and the apostles themselves have handed down to the Holy Fathers, and the Holy Fathers have preserved and they've handed down to me. I have to also recognize the fact that that same very church sat down and has had real dialogue, and in having that dialogue have recognized that there is something here that ought to be fought for, something that we have to be hopeful that will one day lead it.
Okay, so I'm going to get back to the chat window, and we're going to take a look here, if there's new chats. Yeah, they got a little heated. Unseen Warfare. Rumpelstiltskin writes, I think both work and everything in between. It's very helpful to have a diversified presence for those who don't mind using various technologies and media, digital or physical. It's all good in my opinion. That's a valid point. Yeah, Unseen Warfare, not the type of false ecumenism we're preaching. So he doesn't admit it's false. This, unfortunately, I will say this about that Unseen Warfare. Keep in mind that in World Orthodoxy, they've been presenting this good and bad ecumenism kind of binary, and I think that the Coptic fathers there have kind of absorbed that thinking. Like, they don't want to be associated with the worst ecumenism, where you're, giving the hugs and joint prayers with the woman Episcopal bishops or things like that. Like, they want to be able to say we have a principled ecumenism, which, frankly, ecumenism is by its nature unprincipled. All right, so let's get back, because we are doing the mighty switcheroo.
Some form of union. So when Father asks, I believe you're Orthodox, it really does depend on what you mean by Orthodox. Do I recognize Orthodoxy in you? 100%, Father. And that's why I call you Father. And that's why I believe that when you stand at the altar, the Holy Spirit is at work in you. Does that necessarily then translate into me suggesting that you now belong to the same communion as me? I don't think so. I don't think so. And you might see that as a contradiction, but I don't know how else to express the.
I do, in fact, see it as a contradiction. But as we get back to the chat, Cloister says, but that is exactly the type of ecumenism that the Copts and World Orthodox engage in at WCC affairs and local ecumenical get-togethers. This is a valid point. Let's continue.
I recognize that the Holy Spirit can very well be at work in your family, in your tradition, in your church, but that doesn't necessarily have to translate into, do I believe that your expression is full? No, I will always preach for my choir. I really do believe that I'm part of the Oriental Orthodox Church for a reason. Had I believed that the Eastern Orthodox Church had a truer expression of the fullness of the faith than the Oriental, I would have joined the Eastern Orthodox. I really do believe that the Oriental Church has a fuller expression of the faith. Father, please, Father Carlos, feel free to add to that, correct anything I might have said incorrectly.
My question basically is this: our fathers and yours have 1,500 years of anathemas unresolved behind them. I want to try to understand how that's resolved.
They're not resolved. They're not resolved. And as I was speaking before to the Reverend Father Mikhail from the Rokor Church, I had the blessing and the privilege of speaking to his reverence.
Rumpelstiltskin says, I was born here, so my beliefs are true, basically. Yeah, unfortunately, that is the case. Or OTP, I definitely would say you're making some great points. I'd love it if you could either jump on or if you want to jump in the cafe chat, but definitely that's a good point. Talking about ecumenism and they're in the WCC. Yeah, it's this is one of those things that they have to kind of be held to account on. But anyway, we're going to switch back. Let's do this
on the phone, and we had discussed the nature of these what they call the official dialogue between the two Orthodox families, so-called Oriental and Eastern. I think the number one proof that these things were not kumbaya ecumenism or heretical ecumenism, I'm sure Father Sweden is the persuasion that they are. No offense to that, honestly, Father.
Oh, and by the way, just so you know, I want you to see something cool here, because Sava, I just noticed that you had said, Tikon, can you check your emails? Observe this, Sava. This is going to blow your mind, because this is something that is actually part of the chat module. I can right-click you in the listing, and you can actually have a private conversation.
I have to send them a file. It's actually, you know how I talked to you earlier this week, Father, and I mentioned I was translating the life of Saint Petro Kolnichevsky. Sent him a first draft of that, which.
Oh, okay. So this was actually for email. Okay, that makes sense.
Yes, I will hopefully have. Oh, go ahead.
But it was still pretty cool that I could actually send a private chat. And I'm going to throw out a few more of these just because I can.
We'll hopefully have the translation of St. Petro Kolnichevsky's life finished by next week. It's a beautiful life. Translating it, I have it like 95% done. It is truly amazing. It's been a while since I've read a life of a saint. I thought if they turned his life into a movie, people would think it's unbelievable. But this is just the truth. It's truly amazing.
That is, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm now sending one to Unseen Warfare. I'm wondering why it's not updating at all. Like, it's updating. You know what's weird? It's updating in a weird way because it's not showing. Okay, this is crazy. There is on my screen. I am so confused. Okay, I'm getting messages. Oh, cool. Yeah, okay. So there's private messaging, guys. It's something that does exist in the thing. And I'm going to go back to here. Let me see here. I don't see anyone. Well, I see, Father Simeon there and Cloister, but I'm curious as to why I'm looking at this and what is visible on the screen here on the cafe is different. And I'm not sure why that is. Okay, well, let's see if it refreshes by the time I do this, because we're going to go back to the amazing Coptic answers, guys. One moment.
The proof that they were not kumbaya.
Bless you.
It's still unresolved.
Thank you.
It's still unresolved. There's 1,500 years of anathemas are unresolved, and as the conclusion of this letter will also reveal, if we get along with it, and finish it today, it shows that we can approach things in the spirit of charity without ever compromising the standard of the stainless faith. I'm not sure what Father's last, but how can there be common celebrations?
Those
against all kinds of those.
No, that's one. I don't know of common celebrations.
We don't do common celebrations, God forbid.
Yeah.
Not to my knowledge. But.
Me too. Even the Antioch one has fallen through in the last 2 years ago.
Oh, that attempt to make marriage.
Yeah.
More. Yeah.
Oh, like in the agreed statements, like a wedding with both.
Yeah, that I think fell through. It didn't hold up.
I don't know what they meant by it didn't hold up. I don't think it can be put so simply. Let's get back to the chat. Give me a moment. And so Sava is talking about the work he is doing in the translation. Sava, thank you for your translation efforts. And Sava says, I was working on it all last week when I was in Arkansas. This week I have to go to northern Mississippi. So hopefully I'll have a day or so of isolation to finish it. Cloisters, as I constantly see photos on social media posted by Coptic bishops arm in arm laughing with female sheep priests praising their works and commitment to the faith. It's utterly preposterous and dumbfounding how they can claim on the one hand they're the true church and on the other side dine with sheep priests and commend their faithfulness to Christ. Yeah, that's the impression I get also, is that, we're obviously kind of at the outset of these discussions. Unseen Warfare in the YouTube chat says, refresh. When you sent the message, it shows the chat where I posted the documents. That's true. Good. Hopefully that helps you. Okay, so we're back here. And so apparently when you refresh, by the way, you cannot see the private messages you sent unless you reopen the private chat. So just so you know that. They're working on it. They're building on a new 2.0 version. But yeah. Okay, so let's get back here because I want to see the part where they get really salty. Give me a second, because I ended up right around here. I ended up actually leaving the chat, so I had no idea they were still talking about me. So it's like 10 minutes later that they showed up, and I want to see, because I popped back in a little bit later. Yeah, they're mad at me. I came back to this video like 25 minutes later, and they were really mad. He's like,
Father, I think you might have accidentally muted yourself.
what?
Were you speaking just now? It looked like you were trying to speak.
No. I wasn't actually. That's just, this is pre-recorded video. What actually happened was I had actually left that chat room for the Lion's Den, and I was busy looking at other stuff. I have other things to do. OTP correct, fallen through, never renounced. That is absolutely true. But it's crazy that I came back 25 minutes later and they're like really mad at me because I wasn't there, so I had no idea what was going on. But that led to me coming back and basically said, look, we're willing to talk about this. We're willing to talk about Chalcedon, and we're willing to talk about ecumenism, but we have to do it honestly. And they said they agreed. And so I got their emails. Subdeacon Daniel sent that to me. And hopefully we'll have either an informal or a formal debate. We'll see, but we haven't heard anything back from them since Friday. So we're going to give it a few more days. And yes, didn't you tell them you debate them if they could have clergy before subdeacons' views? And yeah, well, both Father Kyrillos and Father Anthony are priests, and they actually run the Coptic Answers channel with 30,000 people. I think they are definitely more representative. And they did ask me that, by the way, on that stream. They said, why does it have to be a priest? And I explained, because if it's not, then it doesn't have the authority of the church behind it. Some random guy calling himself Dioscoros can make up anything he wants and say that's the position of the Monophysite churches. That may not be true, but it doesn't matter because there's no accountability. And they can just deny it if he says something stupid, which is what often happens. That's part of the reason that we say that we want, at least a priest, because frankly, if a priest says a really good lie that turns out to be completely not what they believe, it takes some effort to get him disciplined. It would take, remember, it takes six bishops to, it takes 3 bishops to punish a deacon, 6 bishops to punish a priest, and 12 bishops to hold a judgment on a bishop. So the higher the level of accountability, the more you're putting it on the line. And we've been willing to put everything on the line when it comes to arguing with the heterodox for years. I think we, of all people, have a right to demand from our opponents, from those who disagree with us, that they hold to the same standard. And I think that's fair. But in any case, let me see here. I'm going to refresh, make sure I haven't missed anything. Cancel, not this site, this site. Refresh. I'm going to go here. But yeah, so that's true. Let me see here in the cafe chat. Other than that, let's see here. So let's take a look here. Once again, this is, support the channel. We need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nft.net, on Give, Send, Go, or on Odyssey. And don't forget to like and subscribe. I will mention this at least twice. And don't forget that this is a live Q&A, which means that if you have questions, if you have comments, if you have debate challenges, feel free to pop on using the link in white at the top of the chat in the YouTube window. And if you want to make a comment, we invite you to head over to frozenuscafe.com in the chat section and jump in the discussion. So that's kind of where we are now. Sava, has that moved at all in the cafe, or no? I don't know if it has. I don't think it has.
Let me check. I don't think so. No. I'll type out something real quick to see.
Yeah, I think it's the same. All right. Anyway, so that's where we're putting chats here. But if you want to put a super chat on, you can, and we highly recommend it. We would appreciate it. Yeah. Okay. So it is live there. I see that you just sent that. So that is live. And let's see here. Again, now we had a question. I know it came from, I believe, I want to say it's Unseen Warfare, and I just have to look in this. And it was a discussion about Father Seraphim Rose. And I'm going to have to stop sharing for a moment while I pull that up. Or just change the size. Let me see here. And I'm going to have to look that up on my own. And so, let's see. Yeah, this was a lot of discussion about Father Seraphim Rose. And one of the difficulties that we're having is getting a full kind of listing of the corpus. Bishop Enoch has joined the chat. Welcome, Vladika Benedicite.
Benedicite, God bless.
Okay. And so we're in the live Q&A. Let me see here. We've talked about Esphigmenou. We talked about the Coptic clergy and what they, what happened last week. I put up a little bit of that live. We haven't heard back from them. Let me think here. There hasn't been too much. I know that you're translating a document now that's you're putting on the traditional Western Orthodoxy page. Since it's relevant to this discussion, would you mind telling people about it, a little bit about it? Or?
There was a book written by, there was a text written by Vigilius, who was the Bishop of Thapsus in North Africa, around 490 maybe, and it was called Against Eutyches and Nestorius, 5 books in defense of the Synod of Chalcedon. And I translated, I'm translating through like the sections. I have used various machine translations to render the entire text, but I still don't feel comfortable about that one unless I go and compare each line, because a lot of these AI machine translations actually can do a very good job. It's just sometimes I have used like the free Chat GPT 3.5, but I end up arguing more with it about the translation than I actually have productive use of it. So I don't really use that as much anymore.
Well, it's mind blowing, but if you ask ChatGPT about, like, they're like really manipulating this thing now. If you ask it about the Trump assassination attempt, for example, that I was referring to this month, it'll pretend it wasn't there. And, like, Google will even auto suggest, if you try assassination of TR, it'll suggest Truman.
Oh, I was just using the 3.5 one that's not updated since 2022. So, okay. But anyway, so the book, I'm translating sections of it. So Father Boniface and I are going through it. And Vigilius wrote his book. Vigilius was Bishop of Thapsus in North Africa. He was at the famous Vandal Synod in 484 that St. Victor of Vita wrote about in his book, The History of the Vandal Persecution. And what happened at the Vandal Synod was that
Vladika, before you go into the description, because I know that it's important, I just wanted to note for Father Simeon, Cafe Reader 1, what is that doc the cops had on the screen? It's the letter of the Church of Alexandria to the Church of Rome. I'm not quite sure which letter they are referring to, because frankly, I just joined the stream as a troll. Father Antonio says traditional Western Orthodoxy's last program was excellent. Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting. And I always miss Vladika Enoch streams. I can never catch him on time. Vladika Enoch does his streams in the afternoon, so it's not an evening stream. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
So anyway, so what happens is, now I also recommend people read St. Victor of Vita's book, History of the Vandal Persecution, which you can find done by, you can get like a $10 copy off of Amazon, done by Liverpool University Press. But anyway, also, that's also a text in which you have this long declaration by the Orthodox bishops about the procession of the Holy Ghost, and these are North African bishops that were from the 484, and there's no mention of the Filioque, by the way. But if you look in the Patrologia, they have it in there. But at the bottom of the note, they have a text that says not on the oldest manuscripts. Anyway, so I've had people throw that in my teeth, and then you look at like the Liverpool University Press book, and it's like, no, that's not in there. Anyway, so Vigilius was there, the synod, and I think he is Saint Vigilius. Actually, he was a confessor. So Saint Vigilius is at the synod. He's like, we're not going to accept Arianism. So a lot of the North African bishops got kicked out of North Africa. A number of them got tortured to death by the Arians, who were in charge of like Carthage at the time and such. So Saint Vigilius, I think, ends up like in Asia Minor around Constantinople, I believe. Maybe he went to Italy first, but and he ends up there in the middle of what's called the Akakian Schism. And the Akakian Schism was inaugurated, I think, excuse me, around
no worries,
483 or something like that. And what happened was Acacius, who was the patriarch of Constantinople, and the emperor Zeno at the time, they were like, well, we got to solve this anti-Chalcedonian problem. It's a big issue. So what they decided was to have a document called the Henoticon, which means union document. Okay,
right?
The union thing. Okay, unity, whatever. So and the document basically said this. They talked about 3 ecumenical councils, that is Nicaea, Constantinople, and Ephesus. It says we anathematize Nestorius and we anathematize Eutyches. And then it said no other discussion is to be had. All right? Now, Acacius of Constantinople would say he defended Chalcedon personally, but he did not want to force Chalcedon on others. Well, obviously, the reaction in the Orthodox West was like to be aghast completely of this. And it reached such a height that during around 483 or 484, the time of Pope St. Felix III, I believe, the Orthodox bishops in the West said, like, we're not going to have anything more to do with anybody who does not say you have to accept Chalcedon. It doesn't matter if that bishop says he personally accepts Chalcedon and he defends it. If he is communicating in a communio in sacris, concelebrating whatever with those who say you don't have to accept it, we're not going to be dealing with any of them. All right. So Vigilius is in the midst of this. He's Saint Vigilius is in the east at this time, exiled, and he has to write his books to defend the Council of Chalcedon from the attacks of Monophysites and Nestorians and such. Since many of the Nestorians still didn't like it anyway. All right. So we're going through that material in that text as we go on, and about 5 sections. See, there's 5 books. Each book is composed about maybe 15 small little sections, and we're going through 5 sections each at a time. So it's an important text because it has references in it that technically should be impossible if you go through this, what you oftentimes read in almost some Monophysite literature. For example, they'll say that Chalcedonians between the year 461 and 519 did not believe you could say God was crucified in the flesh. Right. But St. Vigilius says God was crucified in the flesh. The Word was crucified in the flesh. Now, he says you have to say that in such a way as not to imply the divine essence suffered change. That's why we say crucified in the flesh. All right? And such. So, I think it's important. A lot of modern writers don't really bother with many of these Orthodox writers from that period, because a lot of them simply say this is stale material. It's just formulaic, all right, and it doesn't it doesn't quote unquote advance the progressive agenda. That is, they mean it doesn't advance ecumenism if you're going to bring up all this stuff, which is good. That's fine. I don't want to advance ecumenism and such. So we're going through St. Vigilius' text. We're probably going to go through Boethius's text against Eutychianism and Nestorianism as well, and then eventually, Saint Leo the Great's letters, and eventually we'll probably get around to maybe addressing various attacks that have been made on Saint Theodoret of Cyrus. And even to the point where there are some people who call themselves Orthodox in the past 40, 50 years, most famously this Father John Romanides, who basically, would attack St. Leo the Great and say that St. Theodoret of Cyrus, not to be confused with Theodore of Mopsuestia, they're not the same person, they would attack them, even though St. Theodoret was rehabilitated at Chalcedon, and he anathematized Nestorius at Chalcedon.
Yep.
And
Unseen Warfare asks, why do the Monophysites say we can't bring up Eutyches? They say something like he's been anathematized by them or something. I can't remember.
Well, what's true is this. At the Latrocinium, the so-called Ephesus II in 449, Dioscorus exonerated Eutyches. All right, even though people were saying this guy is a heretic and they wouldn't let St. Leo's tome be read at the council, or that council. So what happened is that did blow up in the face of Dioscorus, right? Because even he had to admit that things Eutyches were saying, even from his view, were crazed out and out there. All right. So I don't know why they say that. I mean, look, they're talking about Ephesus II as being this great council, and Dioscorus exonerates Eutyches. So I mean, look, we're gonna, that was one of the reasons they hailed Chalcedon, was there was such a scandal to claim that Eutyches had been exonerated at this council in 449. So I don't know why we can't. If they claim that they condemn him, that's great. But we're still going to talk about the fact that you can't say one nature or claim one nature is to the exclusion of claiming two natures. I mean, the father, Saint Cyril, did say one nature of the Word of God incarnate. Obviously, he did use that phrase. All right. And the Fifth Ecumenical Council says you can use that phrase as long as you don't take it to exclude the language of the other fathers as well. All right.
Yeah.
Obviously, they're not going to condemn Saint Cyril, and the fathers at Chalcedon didn't condemn Saint Cyril. So
it's well, I think that's going to be one of the points of contention if we do have this discussion.
Yes.
Is there's a tendency towards I hate to say it, it's almost like a solo Kirilo kind of position where basically they take Saint Cyril to such an extreme that I don't even think it's one he held.
Yeah, well, remember and here's something to remember. Saint Cyril, he had the famous 12 anathemas, which the church accepts. Okay.
Yeah.
And remember, a lot of people misunderstood that, and it caused such now. Should those Antiochian bishops have caused controversy? No. But Saint Cyril, around 433, when he drew up the document of union with Patriarch John of Antioch, all right, he was willing to, as long Saint Cyril's view at the time was that as long as the essence of the anathemas are contained in the statements the doctrinal statements of the Tome of Union, okay, then his view was that they don't have to accept the 12 anathemas if they don't want to, as long as the essence of his teaching is contained in the Tome of Union. All right. And he said that's fine. Now Saint Cyril realized that, like Theodore of Mopsuestia, who was dead at the time, had taught essentially had taught the Nestorian heresy before Nestorius, and he wrote against that. But Saint Cyril's view is that, look, we're going to leave this to a future council of bishops to decide. I don't want to. We just got this, communion restored under Orthodox basis, because there were people who knew Theodore Mopsuestia with Cyril alive, and they would have said, "Oh, he wasn't a heretic." They would have defended him. All right. And Saint Cyril's view is that as long as they're accepting orthodoxy, even if they believe this guy was, unjustly maligned, I'm not going to deal with it at the moment. Okay. And his view was and that's what happened. The church ultimately condemned him at the Fifth Ecumenical Council, Theodore Mopsuestia. All right.
Yeah.
The problem is that some of these cases, you have to wait several generations to everybody who has a stake in that person's personality. You know what I mean? They're dead. All right.
Yeah.
That's often what happens in church history, because if you try to start condemning people who you're very much committed to, or, that happens through numerous church battles. So, so obviously, Vigilius talks about that. I think his fourth book of the 5 books, or maybe the 5th book, is dedicated to showing comparisons between the Chalcedonian language and St. Cyril's letters, for example. So he goes through that. Now, obviously, within the Orthodox West, and in some in obviously in the East as well, but I do more with Western patristic sources. We always use the language of one person and two natures. That was always what we did. All right. I think there are 3rd century references to that. All right. Or late.
I almost want to break my rule, Vladika, about putting up comments from the YouTube stream. But
don't worry about it. If they want to have something to say, then
yeah,
super chat.
I'm going to say it out. Yeah, okay. I'll say it out loud. Actually, I'll just copy it. Actually, if I can. No, I can't copy it. But Elijah Hollenberg says Father Romanita said that Pope Saint Leo followed Blessed Theodoret like a quote pet on a leash.
I don't know how Romanides was a crazed heretic. He was mentally he was not just a heretic. He was crazed. He believed he was in contact with UFOs or aliens. There were articles about it. He believed your spinal fluid was where your spirituality. I mean, he literally believed spinal fluid. If it was clear, it meant you were an elder. If it was not clear, you were not an elder.
Wow.
All right. That's the famous joke on Twitter. I mean, from what I've seen.
Yeah, I know this, but the spinal fluid joke is well known. But it's interesting because of how much my generation.
Remember, Romanides also believed that the Old Testament was simply fictional. Yeah. He believed that the books of Moses were invented by Babylonians and Jews, and none of it really mattered. It's strange that some of these Coptic clergy, who from what I understand, many of them do believe in the historicity of the Old Testament. At least now, some of them do. That they would make this guy who was like a ultra liberal, who denied the historicity of the Bible, such a figure that they want to exalt and exonerate. When this man was, horrifically heretical in multitudes of ways, denying, everything.
Saba comments, Eutyches was a eunuch who wasn't even supposed to be a priest. He would apparently lie to the bishops and claimed he couldn't grow a beard because he was part Avar, if I remember correctly.
Well, I mean, there were cases of eunuchs. The canons say that if you make yourself a eunuch, if you do that to yourself, you can't be made a clergy. But if that's done to you, but if that's done, like Saint Germanus of Constantinople, if you look at the old iconography, he has no beard because he was castrated as a child by the slave masters. All right. Wow. So that was not of his fault, though. You know what I mean? So there was no reason the church could bar him. So the canons of Nicaea say that if somebody does that to you, or you happens in an accident or something like that, then there's no penalty. Just like you can't mutilate yourself. In other words, intentionally.
Right, like the case of Origin.
Yes, in the case of Origin. Yes.
Now I know that Saba was asking, and this is more show related. Do you always stream at the same time on the same days or throughout the week?
Are you talking to me or to you?
Yes. No, to you.
It's whenever I get the translations done. Generally, it's going to be sometime before 3:30 in the afternoon on some weekday. That's all I can tell you. So
keeps people on their toes. So don't forget that, and just to put that down there. Don't forget that Bishop Enoch's channel is Traditional Western Orthodoxy on YouTube, and you want to turn on the notifications because we don't know what it's when the translations can be completed. So
now, does Sava have a source for that about Eutyches and the beard?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, Sava's here. He's in the chat. He's in the Sava.
Okay.
Can you?
I remember reading something about that. I couldn't tell you where. It's been many years. Okay. Someone asked me about this the other day, and I remember something about him claiming that it might not have been Eutyches. It might have been someone else, but they will claim that they couldn't grow a beard because they were part Avar or something. The Avars were like a Turkic group or whatnot. I don't know much about them.
All right. Oh, never mind. I was just wondering. So anyway, that's St. Vigilius's text. There were others and such. So we'll see how far we get as time goes.
All right. Well, let's go back there. I'm also gonna want to look at Father Simeon's link, but let me see what else they had to say here. So let me.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and step out for a second, okay?
Okay, that's fine. Oh, okay. I guess Bishop Enoch is going to step out for a bit. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at the other link. If you give me just a moment, because Father Simeon did recommend watching a video. I want to see how long it is. If we're gonna have to do an independent episode on it, give me just a moment while I do that, and I'm gonna try to find that real quick. Let me see here.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, welcome back. I'm trying to find. Father Simeon had sent me an email about I guess it's a kind of orthodoxy from a Roman Catholic perspective. I don't know if it's a short video. I assume it was for review. So I just want to see how long it is and if I can find. Aha, found it, I think. Give me a moment and I will put that up on the screen.
If I could also say, Father, I know we were going to play the Coptic video. If we could save that for some other time, because I don't want to listen to it until I'm going to do a fresh listen. All right.
Right. Yeah. No problem. I actually just put up a couple of relevant parts just to point out that we did actually pop onto their stream. They have they have tentatively agreed to have a discussion / debate, but we haven't heard anything since Friday. But well, obviously that could just be because they're busy or because.
Well, obviously, I mean, look, there's people do stuff, so I understand.
Yeah. So let me quickly. I'm going to put on this. I guess it turns out this is a Reason and Theology video.
Oh. I'm going to step out again, I think.
Is Orthodoxy going woke? Find out from this Orthodox leader. This Michael Lofton. And, he's Michael Lofton. We all know. So let me take a look. If you want to step out on this one, Ludica, I'm going to put it at.
When was it published?
It was that was published.
Is this about like the Alexandrians making the woman deacon?
This was a month ago, so this is fairly recent.
Can you?
It might be about the Alexandrians. We'll see. But in any case, I'm going to play it at 1.25, so it shouldn't be more than 20 minutes of time. Let's put that there because he's a pretty slow talker.
We are going to just, like I said, shift gears here.
You need to put it at 1.5.
What?
Early papal liturgy.
Hold on.
To something that kind of...
What Ludica?
Can't you put it up faster?
Faster than that?
Yeah.
Okay. 1.5 it is.
Follows up with what we saw yesterday. What we saw yesterday is that the Eastern Orthodox are beginning to introduce deaconesses into the Orthodox Church, and they, at least the ones that are being presented as deaconesses, are being presented as sacramentally ordained deaconesses, and that raises a lot of concerns because, okay, if you admit that, you have to eventually admit sacramentally ordained women priests and sacramentally ordained women bishops, at the very least in theory, which is going to create some very big issues between Catholics and Orthodox because as Catholics we don't.
All right, hold on.
So as if there's like non-sacramentally ordained women priests and non-sacramentally ordained.
I mean, they have female Eucharistic ministers. That's apparently fine, but I mean, pot calling the kettle black there, I believe, but sure.
Well, look, you got the clown masses, and Francis having the Brazilian clown masses. It just everybody knows.
I'm gonna share Father Simeon's thing, even though it's on YouTube, just because we don't have that emoji on the cafe yet. I don't even know. Is that like Cookie Monster? But it's funny. All right,
I think what this is that Michael Lofton has to make it appear that, I mean, look, I'm not going to defend world orthodoxy because they probably are going in that direction. They are going in that direction. He's right about that, but so is the Vatican. They're both going at the same speed and such. Although I think the Greeks are probably going to be far ahead of than the others and then drag them along. But
I have activated Father Boniface on the cafe just so people know.
All right, go ahead.
So hopefully, and let me get back here and.
Are inferior. In fact, the greatest saint is a woman, the Virgin Mary. So it's not about Mary. It's not really related to that issue. But we are seeing this In fact, if you haven't seen that video, the video that I did yesterday is called A New Schism in Eastern Orthodoxy ? Go and watch that, because I talk about problems with Eastern Orthodoxy and the new schism emerging there, as well as this situation with women deaconesses. Now, somebody asked me, well, what is the reaction from some other Orthodox to this? Well, there's been mixed reaction. Some welcome this, are completely in favor of it. Some are just silent. In fact, maybe the majority are silent. But I did come across one bishop in Orthodoxy who is just against this. And it's pretty interesting to see what he says about Eastern Orthodoxy.
Mm-hmm.
Because what he's going to tell you about his own
curious who this bishop
church, his own community, is something that online Orthodox are not.
Bishop, huh?
It's something that online Orthodox are going to hide.
I feel a little.
In fact, I have them do it pretty often in the comment section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the truth, and not just from my own observations.
When he says
an Orthodox bishop himself.
Yeah, I will. Hold on.
So
when you really just need to have your hand on the space bar, because you can stop it immediately that way. But,
but I also go back to the StreamYard screen, so I have to go back to the YouTube.
Okay, I'm sorry, you're right.
No, go ahead.
So obviously, when he says "quote unquote" one bishop in Orthodoxy, he's not talking about true Orthodox bishops. He's really talking about the mainstream liberal. So there's one person in the modernist ecumenist patriarchates. He's saying is against it. Okay.
Or he's talking about Gregory of Colorado, because he's trotted him out.
Oh yeah, let's see. Yeah, exactly. Maybe that's who he's talking about, right?
Let's find out. We'll find out.
Here
the excitement begins.
Take a look at it. I think you will find this eye-opening, especially for those of y'all who think that somehow the grass is greener on the
from the text. That looks like it's from Jesse Dominic's site.
The other side. Deaconesses in the early church were akin to the myrrh-bearing women. Sermon of the Sunday of the myrrh-bearing women. This is on orthochristian.com.
Yep.
By an Orthodox bishop in Lebanon, Archimandrite Gregorios.
That's not a bishop.
That's not a bishop. That's an Archimandrite.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay.
Please tell me he did not confuse the two. Please tell me he did not confuse.
Maybe it's going to get better.
Does Michael often ever get better?
Monastic Archimandrite. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life. Today, on the second Sunday after Pascha, we commemorate the myrrh-bearing women who, as the Holy Scripture tells us, dedicated themselves to serve the Lord Jesus Christ. They followed him, served him, and served his disciples. After God created Adam and granted him authority, he created Eve to be a helper for Adam. Thus God assigned one service to the man and another service to the woman, so that they would complement each other. The church followed this order that God determined for his creation. However, in our days, we are witnessing a reversal of this order and a distortion of the system that God set since the beginning of creation.
Bless you.
Today, we see a push for the female priesthood within church circles, both clergy and laity. I'll stop there.
Okay, we're stopping there. Oh, wait.
Again, some Orthodox are going to pretend this doesn't exist, and they will gaslight you and say, this isn't an issue in Orthodoxy. Yes, it is. There is a push for women in the priesthood within Eastern Orthodoxy, and here this Archimandrite. In fact, I don't know if he has been ordained a bishop or if he's just a...
If he's an Archimandrite, he's not a bishop.
Priest monk. So we'll need to double check that. Either way, this Archimandrite notes within his own church that you have clergy and laity pushing for this. Recently, we heard about the ordination of a deaconess in the Orthodox Church in Zimbabwe. That's the one that I covered yesterday. Deaconess Angelique, who's actually an archdeaconess. That is under the Patriarchate of Alexandria. Now, remember, it's not just her, it's 6 others that the Patriarch himself ordained. This deaconess participates in liturgical service, reads petitions, and administers the body and blood of our Lord Jesus Christ to the faithful. Not only that, but the ordination service used for her ordination is the exact same one as a male deacon. So you can't say this isn't considered by the Orthodox to be sacramental.
Yep, he's right here.
What?
Michael, he's
he's right.
He's right. Yeah.
It should be noted that deaconesses in the early church were akin to the myrrh-bearing women, and their service was limited to assisting bishops in the baptism of women and anointing them with holy chrism so that the bishop would not touch the woman's body. He appears to be ignorant because that is not always the role of women deaconesses.
Do you have counter evidence, Michael?
Now, I like to ask a question. What actually is the evidence? Where is the actual primary source evidence that says deaconesses actually did the chrismation? Physical touching aspect of the chrismation.
I want to say Tertullian, but I'd have to double check.
I would like, because I've heard people dispute that as well. Because the idea of what I have read is that the deaconesses helped with baptism. That meant that they anointed with chrism, but the priest pronounced the formula behind the curtain. But I've never seen primary source evidence about that though.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it. I want to say Tertullian, but the point is, What he's saying here is actually somewhat worse. What he's actually saying is that they actually were performing a liturgical role. So
yeah, well,
that,
I mean,
I don't
obviously,
know that there's any evidence for that.
No.
In the early church, there were plenty of liturgical functions. You might consider that an abuse. Others might say no, that is their normal function.
Where's the evidence?
But he seems to be unaware of that. He seems to think, oh, no, these women deaconesses were just assisting in, female baptisms. Well, that was certainly the case, but that's not all they did in all places and at all times.
Do you have any evidence?
He seems to be unaware. At that time, many converts to Christianity were adults. However, as Christianity spread more widely within the empire, the need for this service decreased as infant baptism became more common than adult baptism. At that time, the ordination of deaconesses ceased in the church. It seems that it ceased way later.
Not much
Now
later.
You have to make a distinction between, like, Saint Nectarius ordained deaconesses.
Mm-hmm.
All right, he did not ordain female deacons. All right, so I think you have to make a distinction between the deaconess as like Saint Nectarius had, or that existed
versus a female deacon.
Because according to the canons, like Chalcedon, like let's talk about Chalcedon, right? Chalcedon regulates the deaconesses. Okay, they have to be 40 or 45 years old. They have to be celibate. They can't be married. All right, they have to, there are various rules about it and such. But
I should mention, Father Methodius, I've just activated you on the cafe. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So anyway, I'll just bringing up details. That's all. No problem.
Okay, so all right, I'm going to switch back to, of course, the chat real quick, just so we can go through some of the comments, and then we'll get back to Michael Lofton. Okay, we read this one. LOL, Evening Brothers and Sisters in Christ suggested 1.5. It's what we're using. I am amazed that you can speed it up that much, and he's still intelligible. Which means he talks really slow.
I'm sorry for sounding sarcastic about reason of theology.
They deserve it. I mean, I'm sorry, but Brian Holdsworth, who's a Catholic, Roman Catholic YouTuber, was talking about how Michael Lofton's channel seems to be going towards politics. He was okay with it, but a lot of people aren't. I'm sorry, but Mr. Lofton seems to just want to create a very popular channel with a nominal papal seal of approval, and he'll be recommending energy bars any day now.
Remember the Chinese, the Bishop of Hong Kong, the Roman Catholic Bishop of Hong Kong that came out and attacked Michael Lofton?
Yes, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
What was sad is that unfortunately Lofton used it for more self-promotion.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, we'll continue.
Right.
I mean, you have women deaconesses in the Latin Church into the second millennium. I'm pretty sure you have that in the East into the second millennium as well.
Okay, I know a little bit about that. There is no evidence that they were like the deaconesses they're talking about. There's no evidence that they were doing liturgical roles like a male deacon, actual deacon. All right, and they were never called Levitices. In fact, in the ancient Western Rite, which they still continue in the second millennium, at least part of it, the ordination prayers for a man who is ordained a deacon, the true deacon, he's called a Levite of the New Testament. If you look at the actual deaconess text from, let's say, the Romano-German Pontifical from like 900, it nowhere mentions she's a Levite. It nowhere mentions services of the altar as a deacon. It's entirely different service, by the way. All right. So yeah. I mean, there's something going on. I think what's happened is I fear that a lot of these guys are hedging because there's that dicastery papal document or commission that's preparing about the role of the women deacon. All right. So if the Vatican comes out and decides to make women deacons, they're going to have to say, oh well, there is this supposed precedent for it. When there is no.
Yeah, that's what Sava is writing in the comments. Bless you. But, I mean, you could just say them out loud. It's okay because you're here.
Just nuns helping the priest in the liturgy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyways, let's get back to the mighty Lofton.
There is now a promotion of strange practices within the church that were never part of its history or tradition. Such ordinations are innovations that amount to heresy. There it is. There it is.
Well,
it's heresy.
I should comment, however, that it seems like Lofton is actually looking for attempts to claim that deaconesses are a legitimate practice. This tells me that he's probably figured out the back door that's going on right now. that these are being introduced through world orthodoxy so that they can then be introduced into Roman Catholic practice as ancient tradition.
Again, we have to be clear for terminology. The canons do use the word deaconess.
Yeah.
Right? They do say that. So we can't say that such a thing just never existed. It's
That's not what I'm saying.
It's not what they're saying a deacon is. It's not what they're saying it is. That's all my point.
Right. But the problem, my point is that Michael Lofton himself is actually playing the side of the world Orthodox on this, whether it's clear or not.
Yes.
He's basically saying it's justifiable.
Yes.
We figured it was coming, right? We figured there would be some Orthobros out there that say that these other Orthodox are doing something correct. Which is why I said to the person who wrote the article yesterday that we reviewed about the women deaconess, they were just trying to play this off as a prudential judgment, a disciplinary thing. I said, no, this is doctrinal in nature. It's a doctrinal claim to say that women are sacramentally ordained. That is a doctrinal statement. I said there'll certainly be a huge debate within Eastern Orthodoxy over this, not just a debate between Catholics and Orthodox.
Something strange about there's a very odd view where as soon as you say something like this is a heresy, it's like, oh, that's ortho, bro. Yeah. I mean, was St. Athanasius ortho, bro, when he was like, I'm not going to accept Arianism, and you're going to have to torture me to death if you want me to, I'm not going to accept it.
I don't know that Michael Lofton believes in any particular, I don't know what he believes in.
The people who, if he's an ultramontanist, and that's the official view of the Roman Catholic Church, most of them don't believe the Pope can be removed even for heresy at this point.
Right. Well, he's a modern ultramontanist. He really does believe that.
The concept, the biblical patristic concept of resistance to heresy, and by ceasing commemoration of heretical leaders, even popes or patriarchs, that doesn't exist any longer in modern in Roman Catholicism. It hasn't for a very long time. So,
okay. And so let me get back to the mighty Lofton.
We are going to say that is a doctrinal error. But it's also a problem within Eastern Orthodoxy. We hear voices demanding equality between men and women as if the church has wronged women by assigning them a specific role. We see a reversal of roles, a reversal of service. God, as I said at the beginning, assigned each one of their role, but now everyone seeks to take the role of the other. We also see a significant promotion of homosexuality, transgenderism, and the ordination of women by Orthodox clergy and laity. Now, that's so funny because I literally did a show the other day talking about how we have people in the Catholic Church trying to promote homosexuality and transgenderism and stuff like that, and we have to fight against that as faithful Catholics? Well, I pointed out the Orthodox have the same problem. And then it was interesting. People came and gaslighted me. Oh, we don't have this in Orthodoxy. Yes, you do. Stop.
Okay, it should be fair to say that we really actually don't have this in true Orthodoxy, which is why Michael Lofton refuses to engage us. But this is a problem in world Orthodoxy. It's a problem we've been talking about before it became profitable for him to do so. So kind of it's kind of tragic. Father Methodius writes like the Pope. Yeah, pretty much.
Lying or pretending that this doesn't exist. And now your own have to call it out and say it. You got to deal with that. Stop the coping. Stop the gaslighting. Engage the facts. Orthodoxy is struggling with the same problems that pretty much every other community is struggling with.
We're not actually struggling with that. I would say that that's something that is a problem for, and mostly in America, Western and New Convert lands is where that's going to be a problem. I don't think this would fly in Russia. Well, it doesn't fly with true Orthodox in any level. I know that there are female acolytes in Greece among the new calendarists, etc. But it's just kind of ridiculous the way he's presenting it. He tends to create equivocation situations where he can say it's just the same. But this was one of those things that ever since I had the discussion with him, and I can recommend a video, which is our interview with Michael Lofton a few years back, where we talked about the consensus of the fathers, and he refused to admit that was possible using examples that he supposedly was going to back up and hasn't for 5 years.
Why? Because we're all having to struggle against fighting modernity to one degree or another. We all have to deal with the same set of problems. This is why I say the grass isn't greener, really, on any side.
It's not ultimate question greener, but
do the Orthodox have something to fight this off long term? I say no, but we as Catholics do with the magisterium, and that is the fundamental difference.
Yeah, we have the consensus of the fathers, which he refused to admit exists.
He knows. He says there's a significant promotion of homosexuality, transgenderism, and the ordination of women by Orthodox clergy and laity. So if you're trying to leave the Catholic Church because we're having to fight against dissenters, who promote.
The problem is that those in the institution, the magisterium that he promotes, in fact, are the reason these promotions are happening.
Some of this stuff. If you leave the Catholic Church to Orthodoxy thinking that you're going to find a safe haven, listen to the Orthodox themselves, who tell you.
Okay, he can't even identify a bishop among the World Orthodox, so I don't know if he's exactly somebody we should reference.
Yeah, no, you're going to find these same problems here. Bishops and priests are appointed by God as servants of his word and stewards of the church's tradition. Any bishop, priest, or layman who betrays his trust and distorts the church's faith and holy tradition is a servant of Satan, not of Christ. He's starting to sound like Pope Francis. There is no middle ground in Christianity, Christ said. Christ said, you are either with me or with the devil. Anyone who distorts the faith and tradition and desecrates the holy sacraments, as the Orthodox bishop of the American Archdiocese under the Ecumenical Patriarchate did, by baptizing children adopted by a same-sex couple, is a servant of Satan and a desecrator of the church's mysteries. So he's saying, this other bishop that he's in communion
we covered this
with is a servant of Satan.
Yeah.
Again, this is the.
I'd say so.
This is
Papadopoulos has long been
cover
referred
this
to as a servant of
for us at the.
Huh?
Remember years ago when Vladika said that Patriarch Kirill was like a high priest of the devil.
Yep.
And then Father M, and there were these people saying, "Oh well, no canonical clergy, whatever so-called canonical, whatever claimed that." And then you have then you have World Orthodox clergy saying,
"Life comes at you fast, everyone."
Yeah, exactly.
Baptism of the two children and the parents are same-sex couple.
They're not parents. They
they're owners.
Pretty interesting story. That was back in 2022. Perhaps I'll put a link to that one in the show notes. But he's referring to that. He's saying, "Hey, this other bishop I'm in communion with is a servant of Satan." Okay. He says this is
not our circus, not our clowns.
This is what is happening in our days, even though there are plenty of online Orthodox who pretend like this isn't happening. This is what is happening in our days, and more is expected to come. So, this isn't a one-off thing. It's going to come even more. We read in the Bible about a time of apostasy. This apostasy is a departure from the true faith in Jesus Christ, the true God, and the promotion of a distorted Christ. Those bishops and priests who promote a distorted Christ are servants of the rulers of this age, servants of a new world order that seeks to change the entire order of creation, and servants of the spirit of the age that wants to...
I will add that Unseen Warfare has commented in the cafe chat. Bless you, and I am going to put that in the... That's okay. I'm going to put that in this chat because it is very interesting. I think the contrast... thank you for that, Unseen Warfare. Allow me to put that up while we continue listening to him talk.
To modernize the church. Oh, so Orthodoxy is struggling with people who want to modernize it. Oh, interesting. It's just curious that he's literally admitting that Orthodox are struggling with everything that pretty much everybody else is having to fight. We're all in the same battles.
Yeah.
The Heavenly Church of Christ and turn it into a worldly institution, no different from other worldly institutions, organizers, and world parties. The church must remain faithful to all it has received from Christ, just like the myrrh-bearing women who did not deviate from Christ's obedience and did not innovate, but served the Lord and his apostles with all their strength. The apostles of Christ preached and ministered the sacraments, becoming a foundation for the spread of Christ's church. Mm-hmm. And, okay, so he's decrying some of the stuff that he sees in Orthodoxy. At the end of the day, though, the question is, what can he really do about it? Yeah, nothing. He can't really do anything about it.
No, you can do something. You can go under true bishops, but that's the solution that apparently he's in agreement with World Orthodoxy. You should never do, because you have to stay with the Pope. You have to stay with Constantinople. Now you have to stay with Moscow. It gets more and more ridiculous as you continue this papal quest, and these institutions have already been long subverted. So it's just like it's a shell game. You're bouncing around from one heretic to another.
He can talk about this and preach against it, but he can't really do anything about it ultimately, because at the end of the day, there is no magisterium in Orthodoxy.
Well, he can do something about it. He can go to the true Orthodox.
Right. How has this magisterium issue worked out for papism to suppress all the liberalism for 60, 70 years?
Yep.
It's actually the people in charge of the magisterium, the so-called,
are the ones causing it.
They're the liberals.
Yep.
So I think this issue will just continue to present itself in Eastern Orthodoxy. And there will be some Orthodox who oppose it and others who are in favor of it. Will that likely result in some schism long-term? Probably. Each of us must...
One could argue it already has. It's just nobody wants to talk about it.
Confront this worldly satanic spirit that seeks to destroy all church tradition and the foundations of the faith. Nowadays, we are witnessing a dangerous shift away from the faith. Even more dangerous is the silence. Any Orthodox bishop who remains silent about what is happening is complicit in this act. Oh, so you mean Orthodox bishops, by and large, are silent about massive problems right now in the church?
Well, not ours, but that's beside the point. The point is, true Orthodox bishops have been speaking about it, but people like Michael Lofton and people like Archbishop Elpisidoros don't listen. But that's not our problem.
Yeah. Listen to the Orthodox when they tell you that they're going through the same problems.
No.
Believe them when they tell you this. Don't listen to the ones who pretend that this isn't happening and lie to you.
For a lot of us, it isn't happening.
The primary mission of a bishop is to preserve the faith, and if he remains silent, he is willingly or unwillingly complicit in this betrayal. By the way, I agree with a lot of what he says.
That's actually true.
Not entirely accurate, but I agree with a lot of what he says.
No, that was actually entirely accurate.
I just think it's interesting that he's saying it, and a lot of other Orthodox would have you think this doesn't exist. Those who are appointed as guardians of the faith. Oh, there's that term, Traditionis Custodes.
Father Simeon has commented on the cafe. I don't want to switch screens, so I'm just going to put it on the YouTube because it is interesting. And I'm just going to put that. And what he said was, I commented to him, how safe is it for you to criticize Holy Orthodoxy without Orthodox clergy to respond to you in real time? I invite you to dialogue with Father Joseph Swaden at NFQ. I highly recommend Father Simeon. If you look back, there is an interview we had with Michael Lofton. And then he replied, I've already dialogued with him many times. You clearly don't know I've interacted and refuted all the names you'd likely throw out. By the way, is he still part of True Orthodoxy, or did he confirm to World Orthodoxy yet? Michael Lofton is leaving out that we actually do have a live video that we recorded with him, and you'll see how he truly treats the consensus of the fathers. He dismisses them because he's desperate for a magisterium. And it's worth noting, when he did this, he was actually formally telling other people that he was Orthodox, even though he was advertising Roman Catholicism. Father Methodius writes, it does not happen in my church. It affects us, but it is alien like other sins. The difference is that for the papists, these problems are systemic. That's Father Methodius. Again, I recommend putting things in the cafe chat. If you do want to send a super chat, we really could use it. We really appreciate it. And thank you for doing that. So once again, it is also a live call-in show. So if you want to call in, if you have a comment or a challenge, if you're Michael Lofton and you don't like what we're doing, he's a coward. He won't come on.
Of tradition. Guardians of the faith. By the way, that's the Catholic magisterium, not the Orthodox bishops. Just for y'all to know.
Wonderful job that magisterium's done so far, right?
Yeah, how's it working out for you, Mikey?
Those who are appointed as guardians of the faith become desecrators of the church's faith and mysteries, celebrating everything that contradicts the holy tradition of the church and becoming mercenaries for the spirit of the age. All those who contribute to this neither know nor live by the tradition. They want a church. By the way, look, I agree with so much of what he says, but it's hard for me to take it seriously because, I'm sorry, with all due respect, your tradition teaches the papacy, and you don't hold to that.
No, it doesn't. You're a liar. You don't want to talk about the 11th century, the investiture controversy, or a bunch of other things. The problem with this is that Michael Lofton, and I hate to say this, I hate to be the one to call this out, was somebody who genuinely never converted to Orthodoxy. And when he says he was a convert to Orthodoxy, he went to a Greek Archdiocese church after being in the Anglican Roman Catholic branch. I forget what that one's called, the Ordinariate or something.
Yes, the Ordinariate St. Peter.
Yeah, right. He was scandalized by something happening in a Novus Ordo church, and he asked a Greek priest if he could start communing there. When I flatly asked him, would you commune if there was a Latin Mass community near you there? And he said, yeah. He's not an honest person. It's all about, I hate to say it, but as even other Roman Catholic apologists are now saying, he's really in it for just the clout. It's not even about the truth anymore.
Your tradition teaches the filioque. You don't hold to that. Your tradition teaches dogmas that you currently reject. Don't talk about tradition when you don't fully embrace tradition. Rant off. They want a church that accepts all the heresies and transformations of this age. Well, in fairness, you accept some heresies. You deny papal primacy, which your own ecumenical councils assert.
No, they don't. This is so boring. I'm gonna go to the end of this because just get to his commentary.
A dogmatic teaching versus somebody who is ignorant about what that dogma is. Perhaps the Archimandrite is ignorant about what his own ecumenical councils teach. let's give him the benefit of the doubt and hope that's the case. Abbot of Holy Door Mission Orthodox Monastery in Lebanon, translated by this dude from Arabic. Archimandrite Gregorius Stefan. I found something else from him online. I just wanted to read a couple brief excerpts from it because I thought, wow, this sounds familiar. He says, "We ask with honesty. Was there no other way, or?"
Right. Do we have to listen? I mean, do we really have to go through this entire video at this point?
Yeah, this is what I mean. We really appreciate the contribution, and this will probably become a clip. But this is about where we're going to stop it. It's just him mush mouthing his.
So, if this, let's say this Archimandrite, okay, let's say he does what Michael Lofton wants him to do, and he becomes a Melkite. Okay, so how is that going to be any different? Where he's going to ask the magisterium of the Roman Catholic Church to condemn these things, all right?
Yep.
And then the magisterium doesn't condemn him, and then in fact punishes him for daring to say that Roman Catholic bishops are heretics who support women's ordination or such and such, because that's what would actually happen in that environment. So, I mean, it's a much worse situation in the heretical modernist ecumenist papism than it even is in modernist ecumenist so-called world orthodoxy. All right. So,
absolutely.
Because at least I suppose world orthodox could they could, if they're smart, they could try to transfer to different jurisdictions or whatever. But papism, the magisterium is going to punish you wherever you go, essentially. So-called magisterium.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree completely. Sava says I might make a thread on that real quick. The Ustkut Council, I think that's a good idea. While there's questions about whether it actually occurred, obviously, the stuff we do have is interesting, and it's definitely worth reviewing. Let me take a look here, and I'm going to just quickly check here. So, yeah, that's basically all we have to say. George K., we agree. Give it to Mike Ely, anything. But, yeah. So again, for those who want to, this is the live Q&A broadcast. You can feel free to call in just by using the link at the top of the chat, comment or ask questions in the chat. Feel free, or you can join us here at afrosinoscafe.com at the chat, or if you want to send a super chat, we'll read it live, or become a member. We really do need your support as we continue doing what we're doing. We are seeing progress abound, and not progress in the sense of being progressive, but we're seeing people that are reaching out, people that want to become true Orthodox. That's a good question. Okay, Father Simeon asks, Florica, there's so much YouTube chatter about universal salvation. We know this is not so, but what about universal judgment?
The last judgment, everyone's going to... Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
You're going to be very much more specific about it. Because obviously there is no such thing, there is no such thing as so-called universalism where everyone's going to be saved eventually. All right? So...
Right.
I mean, arguably, probably a significant portion of the mankind is going to be damned. So... I mean, most of the St. Gregory the Great says most of the people that are in the church and heaven are actually babies. So, because obviously he's speaking from, the medieval times. Infant mortality was relatively high until the 18th or 19th century and such. So, but still, still there's a universal judgment, the last judgment. Yes, that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of the restoration was something that I think even the earliest authors really saw it as something to hope for, not something that was supported by evidence.
Yeah, but it's condemned by the church, though.
It is condemned by
the
the
Fifth
Ecumenical
Council. So even if it was considered as an erroneous opinion, the church finally came on the decision that no. In fact, even when there wasn't an ecumenical council anathematizing it, it was still highly controversial and largely condemned. So,
all right. Let's see if we've got any other comments. Saba, I don't know if you noticed, but I did send you a list. I sent you something privately on which sub forum to post on. That would probably be the best one to use. and then it'll still show up in the top sections, etc. It's just that it'll go to the right place. Let me see here. I don't see anything going on. We just passed the second half of the second hour. I'm not sure how far we're going to go with this here. Let me just quickly switch this to the main cafe tab. And so, yeah, this is the Frosinone Cafe, just for those who don't know. There is there's a moderate activity going on here, but it's a great place to join. It is primarily a true Orthodox forum. There's all sorts of things that we can go here, and it's also a running archive of over 20 years of discussion between different true Orthodox. So there's a lot to learn here. Some of it's not the prettiest, but it's definitely worth it. Give me just a moment while I go back.
Did you talk about the Esphigmenou issue?
We did. I read the article, but
okay, you did. Okay.
Definitely you weren't there for that, but you had a lot to say on this, and it's worthwhile. So let's talk about that. I'm going to put that on the screen.
I did.
Why not? Because we already did, but I did read this already. But putting this back up, so let's take a look here, and basically, yeah. One thing that I think was interesting that we've learned since. And I will definitely get to Saba's post on the Catacomb Council. Well, I think it might just. I think it's just latest posts. Okay. But one thing we did talk about is that ever since that happened, a lot of World Orthodox became sort of bloodthirsty. Like, it kind of went from like what a horror to switch on the whole well, if they don't want to listen, they can die.
It's like like they want to go full Waco, right?
Yeah, there are people who are.
Yeah, that's how they view them as almost like the Branch Davidians, and they need to all be burned to death.
Well, that and I would say they view them like that, a combination of that and a really bad landlord, because frankly, they see this only in terms of the patriarchate owns everything. That's their view. Okay, Cloister.
Isn't there like a deed from like the 12th century from the Byzantine emperor that gave when they built the monastery? Like a donation document giving it to the monks. I don't think I think even on the old, they may have changed, but the old Wiki article. I'm not endorsing Wiki, but even it admitted that the monasteries were owned by the monastic communities themselves.
Yeah. Let me see here. Just a quick switch. Cloister does ask, Ladika, any thoughts on the possibility that St. Isaac was a firm proponent of universalism?
They're going to have to give me the material, primary source material. I've heard people say this. Is that a result of translations from the Syriac homilies or the Greek homilies? They're going to have to go into detail about that.
Okay, Reader John asks for your blessing, Ladika.
God bless. The Lord bless.
We continue on. So yeah, as we were talking about Esphigmenou, basically it is looking, it's really kind of just revealing.
Now, do we have a photo of the main gate? That's where they're going to have to go through.
I don't have one, but I can try to find it.
I would like to actually see what when I went to Greece and I went to the Avlona monastery convent, they did have this gigantic gate.
Yeah, the gate's like 20. It was like
it's metal.
Like
it's
40 feet tall.
Yeah, I think it's like raw iron or steel or something like that. And it has this massive. They can theoretically, if they close that gate off, you'd have to drive like a tank or a bulldozer, a battering ram. You'd literally have to use a battering ram to get through it.
Well, this is let me see here, because this is a stock photo, I believe, of the gate.
Okay.
And I'm going to try to pull this up as soon as I find it. But it's not okay. It's buried in advertising. Give me a moment. That's not what I wanted.
Because I have to assume it must be something similar to the other large iron, sort of like iron gates I've seen before.
Yeah. Let me see here. They really make it difficult. No, that they don't. They have us. I want to see if I can find this. Okay, so let's see here. Try this. Nope. If there's one thing I hate about stock photo companies, it's that they work very, very hard to advertise to you rather than to be useful. Let me try this one.
Because I'm wondering if it has a portcullis. If I'm thinking of it like a, that kind of the doors, and then sort of like a grated drop down. Because it was built, it was built. It was a lot of these monasteries, especially Esphigmenou, which is on the water. They were built almost as fortresses, all right, to resist Muslim pirates. So
yeah. Let me see if this one will have it. There's a Greek link. Hopefully it would. Yeah, here it is. Okay, let me see if I can pull this up. So this is kind of the biggest we have. So let me share this tab instead. Let me see if I can make this bigger. Okay, let me see here.
What is it? Can you go to the Greek inscription? What does it say? Let's see. Notia politis monis Esphigmenou sto bathos ephilin kaite. I'm sorry.
The southern
gate.
Yeah.
Okay. Southern gate.
In the background, the bottle and the Catholicon. Okay. So I guess this is what is actually, I think at this point it's closed off at the second juncture.
Yes.
So that's these are not small by any means. This is to give you an idea. This is probably about 25 feet high, and it looks like the second one's actually a little higher. You'd have to come in with a battering ram, which is already difficult logistically. Like this is not something. Father Boniface is here. Welcome.
They'd have to drive a lot.
Great.
They do have those. They do have those tanks that have battering rams on them. All right. So instead of the gun nozzle, all right, it's like a battering ram. The police have those. So unless they have some special one, they can drive through that.
Right. Now let me. I'm going to put up a comment. We did get a super chat. Thank you. We do appreciate these. Jonathan Britt asked for $10. What is the Orthodox position on the rapture that Protestants continually bring up concerning eschatology? Also, is Archbishop of Verki's Apocalypse the best book on proper times versus end times?
There is no pre-tribulation rapture, and there is no mid-tribulation rapture. The church teaching is that when the Lord returns, when the second coming happens, the dead in Christ shall rise, just like St. Paul says, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Then those who are alive will be caught up in the air to meet the Lord in the air, all right? So if you're alive during the second coming, the actual as the Lord descends, you will be caught up in the air, and you'll be changed in the twinkling of an eye. You will undergo sort of almost almost instantaneous death, all right, and go into what we would consider like a body of a resurrection, as the dead in Christ, as the dead are raised as well, all right. So if you want to say there's a rapture, only in the sense that after everything's over with, all right, that is, you're being caught up in the air to meet the Lord, and then the last judgment happens. But it's not the view that the rapture, it's not the view that all the true believers are taken up and then the Antichrist shows up. All right. So we don't have, you Christians, Orthodox Christians who are alive during it, we're going to have to go through that 7-year period of Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
And so now, as to the second question.
I have not read Archbishop Verki's book, so I can't really comment on it. I mean, I think I've read little sections here and there. I would simply say that Archbishop Verki was a very good writer, so there's probably nothing. He's a trustworthy, writer. That's all I could say. So,
and thank you for your super chat, Jonathan. We really appreciate those. And
if he has more specific questions, I don't think he should have to send more money, but. If he wants to, ask what we mean more, I could.
Yeah, well, Unseen Warfare mentions the Book of the End by Vladimir Moss is a great book on the end times. I have seen that one. That's not bad. There's a few different.
Now,
books.
remember, Father, we read some months back, so-called pseudo-Methodian Apocalypse.
Yeah,
and it was like it encapsulated the entire patristic tradition in 15 pages of the end times. To the point where we were like, maybe it's
Methodius, not pseudo after all.
Exactly. Maybe either Saint Methodius himself wrote it, or somebody who was extremely well versed in the biblical patristic tradition wrote that text.
Yep.
That's all I can say.
Father Methodius notes the rapture is a mechanism they invented to justify other positions they hold to. Absolutely true. Unseen warfare does include a link here. Supposedly they have large armored vehicles, and the fake Esphigmenou is claiming they're being persecuted and attacked by the real one. The fake Esphigmenou is 2 people, and I doubt that they're being persecuted at all now. If they're claiming Esphigmenou has large armored vehicles, how would they get them in there? I'm just curious.
That's the articles where they're. That's the one. The UOJ article, I thought actually made a good point. That they're going to claim that not the Orthodox time, but the Ukrainian.
Right.
They're going to claim that Esphigmenou has stockpiling weapons, which they're already trying to claim, and that they're servitors of like far right wing extremists, and they're going to overthrow the Greek government and blah 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 blah. So I mean, but don't worry, all these people who were all these Moscow Patriarchate people and others who are making fun of Esphigmenou. Well, guess what? Now they're talking about taking over St. Pantaleimons because they won't celebrate with the OCU. All right. So they're going after other people too. They're just going to deal with Esphigmenou first, I think. Although they could deal with St. Pantaleimons and the Bulgarian one, because I don't think they may not put up any resistance or be too disorganized.
Yeah.
I think with Esphigmenou, they've been preparing for this for decades. So.
Yeah, Archbishop Bavariki's book does talk about wormwood. That was a pretty on the nose.
So does Revelation. It mentions wormwood.
Yeah, right. Well, that's his point. Is that the wormwood everyone thinks about Chernobyl, and it was definitely a warning. Chernobyl does yes it does. We know. That said, people have been talking about that for 40 years. I mean, 666 translates into UPC codes, but nobody's cared. But thankfully, UPC technology is being displaced slowly by QR technology. So it doesn't have to always mean that we're going to move directly into the apocalypse.
You can have.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that translates to Blackwood, but I assumed they were the.
You can also have instances in which, sort of like the devil and his forces are trying to move things along, Father Joseph, but they never only get so far. God can destroy their plans for the moment. He may say, "Look, we're going to go on longer," So, but.
Yeah, and Reader John says the end goal is to make Athos Greek and new calendar. Yeah, they're going after 4 monasteries potentially, which is even stranger. I mean, I don't know what they're planning, but it's insane.
Well, I think they're going to give St. Pantaleimons. They're going to say they're going to give it to the OCU or something like that. That's essentially what they're going to do. And remember the Fanar was defeated in Bulgaria for all intents and purposes in this recent patriarchal election there. All right. They didn't want, I can't remember his name, the guy who got elected to be elected patriarch. All right. Because he won't recognize the OCU in Kiev or have you. So they may just say, the heck with the Bulgarians also.
Yeah.
Right?
EJ points out that John Nelson Darby in the 1890s was used to hijack to teach rapture theology. Then the Left Behind series came about. There's a gap of about 100 years between those two events. But yeah. You're correct on Darby, definitely. Let me see here.
That was all I see. All I remember hearing growing up. Everybody talked about the rapture when I was growing up in Protestantism. It was.
It was really big in the 90s.
It was all you'd always see on some. It was all TBN was about, or some other Daystar. Well, maybe Daystar wasn't around when I was younger, but. There were other programs and such like that. So much to the point where if you didn't believe in the rapture, they're like, oh, you must not believe in the Bible or something like that.
Right.
It was insane how insidious it was insinuated into everyone's thinking growing up in like many areas of the rural South. At least in the areas I grew up in. So.
Well, it all fits in with the Zionism.
Yes.
Because it chops up. It chops up the church, brings in Israel, and then so anyway. But I want to add a little application about the rapture in that when a Roman general would have a victory, he would stand outside the city, and the people would receive him in. And so some people would go out to receive him, and then they'd walk with him back into the city to have his victory march.
Mhm.
And that really fits in with Christ as
He's the
far
returning
as
king. Yep.
he's returning the king, and he's at the top, and he's going to come back to the city. And so then the rapture would be the faithful going up to meet him and then returning right back. And now I had gone through a lot of that in my own personal studies when I was at Philadelphia College of Bible, and I was thinking, it just looks this way, and it fits in perfectly with all that's being said. But to chop it up and then to make for the return of the nation of Israel and stuff like that, it just all fits in with the Zionistic issue, and so that's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. If and part of this is also if you believe that there's going to be a pre-tribulation rapture or even mid-tribulation, but pre-tribulation rapture, the church is going to disappear from the earth. The church is not Israel, all that other stuff. It also builds into mentalities about you don't have to worry about doing anything. All right.
That's right.
And you saw what happened. I mean, what happened with let's say, like, again, example. This is I can't remember the name of the guy who wrote it for the life of me, and I've read the book twice. It was basically the pro-life movement before Roe v. Wade. Like it was about the early attempts to fight abortion legalization in the 40s and 50s. All right, and one of the points he makes is that in places like South Carolina and Georgia, North Carolina, the evangelical Protestants, dispensationalists, put up zero fight. Almost none. All right, and many of them, and it was almost they have this mentality, and I suspect it was because of that. But like, why does this matter? The rapture is going to happen; it's just around the corner. So who cares about any of this? All right.
Josephus, the Jewish historian, he has it in his writings that when Jerusalem was being sieged, he called them the tyrants hired prophets to go tell the people, run to the temple and wait for the Lord to return because he's going to return. And the motive of the tyrants was to just create lethargy and apathy in the people to get them to hold off any opposition, but just go to the temple and wait. And that just fits in perfectly with what you're saying, is that it's a theology of just don't be active, don't do anything, just go to the church and just hope for the rapture when it gets your ticket to get out of the mess.
Yep.
Well, Father Simeon asked an interesting question here. He says, I don't get around, but does the Orthodox Church Ukraine MP still exist or just the autonomous Ukrainian church? And now Sava answered that it is still a thing, but it's worth noting that it's kind of changed in its kind of structure. They've tried to make it as quote-unquote independent as possible. Unfortunately, it is still technically connected to what's it called, to the Moscow Patriarchate. But now Suffering Orthodoxy asks, I know the pre-trib rapture, well, that's Saba saying that St. Polycarp of Smyrna and St. Irenaeus of Lyons taught it. I don't know that
I doubt that.
They didn't.
That's
my readings have never shown that.
That sounds like there was a book I read when I was 15, and it had all these quotes at the back of it. They're like, it was trying to prove the church fathers taught premillennialism or something like that. And it was a stretch if you ever saw one. You did have some church writers in the first few centuries that did think it's possible there was going to be a literal millennium after the Lord returned. But that did not go along with the rapture or whatever. All right. And the literal millennium view was essentially, was never became really popular. And by the time you get to the 4th century, it was already gone, more or less. All right. Because there are numerous problems with it when you compare it with like the prophecies in Isaiah and Jeremiah, which also talk about the end times and things like that. And so the traditional position was that the millennium described in Revelation is really a symbolic period that describes the church age, well, so-called what's going on now, all right, and such. Because
right, and so we have some more comments. Unseen Warfare says supposedly 9/11 was a sign of the end. The Statue of Liberty, represented as the angel with a book in his left hand and his right pointed straight in the air, clothed in a cloud and a rainbow. The Rainbow Bridge in New York. I am not sure what the Rainbow Bridge in New York is.
I'd be very careful about.
Yeah, I mean,
because
I've never heard of the Rainbow Bridge in New York.
Because
I'm from New York.
I'm of the opinion that when it talks about the angels in the Book of Revelation, they're actually angels.
Yeah.
All right.
They're
not that when it. Although I understand the seven churches, there is an interpretation that says the angels of the seven churches that are being talked to in the letters will represent the bishops of those churches. All right. And that's different or something like that. But when it says the angels pour out the wrath, all right, the bowls of wrath and things like that, those are actually celestial ministers doing those things.
Yeah, EJ is writing some great stuff in the YouTube chat. He's pointing out Christian fundamentalism to support the secular state of Israel, 1890 to 1933, World 1 and 2. And seems like a well thought out, sinister plan. And just to clarify, not all Protestants believe in pre-trib theology.
Yes, I understand that. I'm just saying, growing up rural, extreme eastern North Carolina, all right, thanks to the horrific influence of the Schofield Study Bible, all right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That pre-tribulation, premillennialism was the only people I remember. Let me see. When I was growing up, the people I encountered who did not believe in it were generally Campbellites, so-called the Church of Christ or something like that. That was the only people I encountered who did not believe it.
All right. So I will say this in the chat, Saba, guys, we have to distinguish between what is actually prophesied in the Fathers, etc., and our own personal opinions about Freemasonry. The Statue of Liberty is not involved in any way, shape, or form in the tribulation. The Masons making a statue, or whoever the French sculptor was, does not mean anything there.
Well, the Statue of Liberty is a Masonic symbol. That is true.
I don't doubt that. It's a pagan symbol as well.
Yes.
Vendetta of the North says, I'm desperately restraining myself from rambling about Masonic symbolism while you're doing a better job than everyone else. Okay, so let's see. Reader John says, when will you have a conversation with Father Methodius? Father Methodius said, bribe me, John. The truth of the matter is, I touched base with him. I think you can confirm this on YouTube in the comments maybe about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. It's just that I'm busy. I'm not trying to put that off. I really do want to do the show. I'm hope we can. You're here, Father. You're here, Father. Actually, if you want to tell me what your best day is, we can talk about doing a show this week. I had an idea there, and that's the talk of spiritual reading, so on and so forth. So if Father Methodius, if you're interested, I saw your email. I didn't get a chance to respond, but I did see it. I think I might have responded to it. But the point is, I know that I'm slipping a lot with these things. There's a lot going on. Let me see here. But
by the way, I want to say that if you want to look at the effect of Zionism upon the world order, just listen to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's recent address to the U.S. Congress.
Yeah, that was
50 standing ovations, right?
It was like that honestly felt like a humiliation ritual for the country. I mean, that was just shameful.
I mean, who? The United States of America or the United States of Israel? I don't know which one I belong to.
No, I will never belong to the second.
Someone asked that they mentioned they lived in Havelock. Yes, I think that's in Craven County. I lived in Carteret County, extreme eastern part of it. I used to live in communities called Atlantic, Sea Level, Parker's Island. I lived in Marshallburg one time, and then I later moved to Beaufort, which is a nearby town to those things. So. Yes, Havelock. I think Havelock has the Marine. Havelock may have
clapping in North Korean fashion.
You ever hear of Havelock Ellis?
No, I have not. Who's that?
He was the owner of 3-in-1 Oil, and he funded Margaret Sanger.
Oh, okay. Well, that's evil.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Just switching here. Let me just go back and put that back on the screen. Let's see here.
I notice what's strange is that there is so little discussion among the the dispensationalist evangelical Protestants about the fact that the state of Israel is a rabid pro-abortion state. That they pay, all abortions are paid for by the state. They don't even have. They used to have this claim that they had like a committee of doctors that had to approve an abortion, which was a farce. Now they don't even have that. The state of Israel mails out abortion pills to to anybody who requests it. I mean, it's like years ago. This was 20 years ago, more than that. John Hagee got into this controversy where he was basically indiscriminately giving money to Jewish medical centers in Israel, and a lot of these just did abortions.
Wow.
Right. And after enough controversy, he had to well, I don't approve of that, but I'm still going to give money to the state of Israel.
Suffering Orthodoxy says the connection to Zionism is apparent. You can look at any major televangelist that promotes rapture ideas, and they will be affiliated somehow. For example, John Hagee and his blood moons nonsense.
There was some one of those televangelists in the 80s or something that they gave a jet to, the Israelis did, or something like that. I can't quite remember. Maybe it was Jerry Falwell or something.
And with that, I won't be monetizing this stream. Let me see here. We've got Father Methodius says we have 5 parishes here now. 2 priests are on leave because of injuries. 1 was out of state half the time, and 2 of us are trying to keep everyone in liturgies. Sava says I didn't start looking towards Orthodoxy until I lived in Pennsylvania. Got involved with the Ukrainians at first. Didn't become true Orthodox until I came down to Louisiana. Durin and Iron Knuckles says all the Congress and president has a handler in Israel, no doubt. Eric Metaxas, except Thomas Massey, that's true. But it was funny that he said that on Twitter that he wasn't going to participate, and then the AIPAC tried to call him out, and somebody was like, "Why?" Basically said, "Well, is that why you killed his wife?" And I was like, "Wow."
Well, remember, AIPAC tried to unseat Thomas Massey, and they failed.
Yeah, they did.
They tried to primary him or something like that, and they failed spectacularly. So
yeah, definitely. So in any case,
and when I'm interacting on Gab, I can just tell when you're interacting with somebody who's a Zionist and they're someone from Israel or they're Jewish. I'm not trying to be mean about it. Not like ethnically. There's something about where they start saying that you're not religious at all. They use these certain common phrases that they use when they're debating other Jews, and they somehow think that applies. It's a very strange, weird, absurd mentality that's very hysterical in many ways. So anyway,
let me see here. So I'm just looking here at other comments.
Well, it's interesting how the Jews fight themselves, because getting back to Josephus, when Jerusalem was under siege, the Zealots burnt their own food.
Yep.
They were fighting with each other, and they burned their own food supply.
Remember, the Zealots also massacred all their enemies in the city also. If you read about the siege, it was like basically they began as they ran everything into the ground, and there's a famous quote from St. John Chrysostom in his homilies on the Gospel, where he said something like, unseasonable confidence is the main trait you encounter among the Jews. All right, this obviously you can say there are exemptions or whatever, but he's saying that there's this almost attitude where they sort of keep on pushing and pushing and pushing, and they think everything's going to go their way, and then a disaster happens. This massive hubristic attitude, and the Zealots had that. So they take over, they kill the Roman garrisons. Like, this is going to go great, as if they're going to defeat the Roman Empire. And then defeat happens. Josephus was pretty smart, because I think he surrendered the garrison at Caesarea or something like that. I can't remember. He was a general in command. He was like, this is not going to work out. So he sort of just surrendered and made a deal with the Romans. And he tried to convince, I think, the Jews in Jerusalem to surrender, but the Zealots weren't going to have it and such.
Yeah.
And,
somebody does ask, what, suffering Orthodox, yes, what's in the water in Michigan for Orthodox parishes are popping up everywhere. It's not just Michigan. It's a whole lot of different areas. We're seeing people coming from all over. I think you're going to see more surprises within the next, within the next few months. We've had no shortage of contacts on our end, and we know that that's true with other true Orthodox all over the country, across different jurisdictions. So,
especially as the mythology of the 6 million strong world Orthodox.
Oh
American,
yeah, that was so sad. Matthew Namy of all people, who's basically
6 million is a magical number for a lot of people.
Yeah, we know. But the point is that in reality, we're now finding out that in the 1940s, when they were making that claim, there were probably closer to 350,000 Orthodox in America.
They were claiming in 1944 there were 6 million so-called world Orthodox in the United States. It's how absurd that claim was in 1944.
But they still kept that up. I mean, they were still claiming in the 1980s, for example, the OCA was still claiming 1 million. I don't even remember how many the Greek Archdiocese was.
There's an old speech you can find somewhere online. Maybe it's on the OCA website that Thomas Hopko gave like 3 years before he died. Father Thomas Hopko, and he said the OCA has to stop claiming it has 1 million people. We only have 30,000 people. And when you look at the actual reports put out, the OCA will say 30,000 active members. Now they'll say like 110,000 baptized members or something like that, or 200,000 or something like that, but 30,000 active members. All right. In other words, when you're dealing with the so-called mainstream world Orthodox groups, you're all together, all of world Orthodoxy in the United States is the size of a moderate-sized Lutheran denomination.
Yep, that is absolutely true.
I mean, literally, I think the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod is bigger than all of them put together, or something like that. That is not. It's not like you're dealing with this behemoth organization or something like that. And it's already, even if you look at those new statistics, they were saying that they had rapid growth in 2023 because 180 people, converted altogether to World Orthodoxy. All right, but then they lost something like 100,000 people due to deaths and people just leaving the churches and whatever and such. So, and then what you begin to realize is that when you're dealing with like many of these World Orthodox groups, they like you say, Father, they're not. It's not like they're 500 times bigger than us or 1,000.
No, they're not.
In many cases, you're talking about something that's maybe 20 times bigger at best. Maybe more likely 10 times bigger. And when you begin to realize that the psychology of the psychological warfare they've been waging, that sort of evaporates. You shouldn't be scared of those people anyway. But you start to become less intimidated by them. So it's sort of like in Russia, the Moscow Patriarchate builds all these churches nobody goes to.
Yep.
They would say, like, we're building more churches. Yes, no one's going to them. They're restoring them because the government is doing it for historical reasons, probably also propaganda reasons and what have you. You can go to Greece and there are a lot of churches that nobody goes to. All right.
Absolutely true.
Okay.
Well, it's interesting. We're talking about baptism, and I notice here Father Methodius baptizes in a local spring-fed lake. That's really awesome. Suffering Orthodox, he says, praise God. I feel like I kind of want to. What's the word I'm looking for? I kind of want to. How do I put this? I want to. Looking for the right words. I guess I want to shuffle the cards a bit. What I mean by that is we lay our cards out on the table in terms of what we do. And that sounds like kind of a weird thing to say. But one thing I do want to do, if I get a chance to, Vladika, I'd love to come on your channel where we go through the basic ritual for things like baptism. So people understand that a pre-schism Western Rite Orthodox baptism is in fact a triple immersion baptism with some elements that are no longer used in the modern Eastern texts, but you can still see the remnants of them. But the reason why is because, as you know, My personal view has been and continues to be that if we're going to kind of work with or deal with other true Orthodox, certain things should be taken for granted. And what I mean by that is things like assuming that we aren't baptizing people wrong. And I think we really do need to work on that because, as has been mentioned on this show and on other shows previously, we really need to get back to kind of basic things in terms of accepting that if somebody is going to baptize, that yes, Reader John points out it is best to baptize in living water. 100% agree. Now, the reason I bring this up is because in many cases, perfectly good baptisms are being spit upon. And this is something that needs to end. It's something that we need to do correctly. And, again, it's, let me see here. Father Methodius says, Vladika, that's a great point. It seems like the future for true Orthodox parishes is the smaller parishes and temples with more clergy. It is my opinion that the clergy need to be aggressively reproducing itself. Well, that's true. And yeah, they are most likely. I mean, even
you're not going to do that with the attitude that so many people promoted for decades, which is I'm so unworthy, which is all true. Everybody's unworthy. Therefore, I'm going to. Oftentimes, men will be taught to avoid getting ordained no matter what, even if there's no real problem with them. But like, you're supposed to be unworthy. Yes, I'm unworthy, but I'm. I guess the parish is going to die off because you didn't want to be made a priest, and then everybody, and that's it. That's what happens. I've seen that happen.
That needs to be a mentality that needs to be
because remember, the apostle said, if a man desires the office, the office of holy orders, he desires a good work. All right. Now, was there some tradition about people avoiding holy orders? Well, if you want to seek holy orders for the purpose of vainglory and to exalt yourself, if that's his whole reason, then don't do it. All right. But if you want to do it because you want to help the church, then yes, then go forward.
Well, I think the problem is that we have to assume. I don't think most people come out to be like. I've never heard anyone say I want to be a priest because I want to be the big guy or anything like that. We just have to assume that they actually do want to do a good work.
I've heard of clerics say, if a man says I want that office, immediately cut him off and never give him that office because so they're attributing to him bad motives. But like you quoted the verse, Vladika, if a man desires, and I was thinking it's okay to desire. It's not okay to exploit, and then of course the scriptures talk about you're not to lord it over the flock. Yes. There's that caveat right there. But to desire a good work is to say I want to serve the Lord, but to say I want to be a tyrant, well, the scriptures say no way, and so anyway.
But most people don't say that though. But uncredentialed layman says, I recently had my daughter baptized in World Orthodox Church by triple immersion. How would she be received in a typical true Orthodox parish? If she was baptized by triple immersion, most likely she'd just be chrismated. That seems to be the most common thing.
I wonder if there should be a letter written and solicited to some of these groups to just say, hey, let's regularize some things here. Can you all agree to it and put your signature to it?
Well, in order for that to happen, there needs to be some sort of higher level discussion, which involves dealing with the actual facts on the ground. I know for a fact that our synod is among the true Orthodox. I would say that, our reputation has taken most of the hardest hits over the past 30 to 40 years. I would also say that most of those hard hits were unjustified because they were based on false information. And I'm not talking specifically about Metropolitan of Logios and the Freemasonic accusations, although that is worth discussing, but things like our sacraments, the assumption that we are using Roman Catholic services or Anglican services like the Antiochian Western Writers or the Rocor MP Western Writers. Nobody's reviewed our books. We can offer to send them. But until people do that at the highest levels, I can't see how we get past that impasse. But I have no problem, sending them our texts. What's it? It's not
Right.
like we have some magical secrets that we're trying to hide. You can buy all our books on Lulu. But
send you a PDF text.
Yeah, you can send the PDF text for free if you want them.
The fact is, St. Gregory the Great, in his sacramentary, says baptized with triple immersion. That was the norm everywhere in the first millennium.
Correct.
All right. And if you found, I don't know who as far as I can understand, probably only in the late medieval post-schism period did they begin to, and that's post-schism, did they begin to go away from that even. I mean, it's in historical terms, it's been the past 500 years that the Roman Catholics and Protestants have departed even more erroneously from the tradition of Orthodoxy.
Father Methodius said, I became a priest because I desired it. I desired it because there was a need. I didn't believe I had special gifts, but I wasn't a wimp either. Understandable. Suffering Orthodoxy says, for my family, being brought into the GSK was chrismation, and my priest had me recite the anathema of 1983. Sounds pretty normal. Then I guess Father Methodius was talking about the smaller parishes and Suffering Orthodoxy. He says, do you mean the parish having as many children as possible? I think the families should have as many children as possible. We should always, I think we always have to be more family friendly. People have complained about screaming children since the dawn of time, and we have to remind you to get over it. If you don't like children in your parish, you won't have a parish. Don't worry, it'll go. Benedict of the Norcia says, I believe even Aquinas said it was sinful for anything less than triple immersion to be normative. Yeah, even immediately after the Schism of the West, they were still doing immersion. I would say probably, I almost want to say up until the Tridentine.
There's a Saint Nicodemus says that technically it began, they more or less abolished it as a custom in the 1500s or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to say that just around the Tridentine period was where it started disappearing.
Yes.
So let me see here. And so we are now in the...
Like, I give you an example. Even in the 1650s, when there was a proposed marriage between Prince Volodymyr, this is his name, Volodymyr, which is where Vladimir comes, which is a cognate anyway, of Denmark, with one of these princesses of the Russian princesses. The Russians said yes. At that time, the Danish Lutherans actually did triple immersion baptism still.
Yeah.
Right. And they were like, well, can you just receive me by chrismation? And the Russians were like, no, we're not, and we're not going to do that. But because we baptize everybody, even by we receive everybody by baptism.
Yeah.
But the point wasn't the debate. What makes it interesting is that they acknowledge that, even a lot of the Lutherans still in the 1600s were doing triple immersion. It's almost like the abandonment of triple immersion is really, again, it's a Reformation and Counter-Reformation, popularization or something like that happened, or what have you.
Yeah.
So,
Benedict of the North says, no one talks about how bad minimalizing Trent was. No, and Sava says a lot of people do. No, not enough people do, Sava. You're right here, Sava. Anyway, the point is that, we don't talk about how far-reaching the damage was in the 15th and 16th centuries, because if we did, then more people would understand that what we're doing in a pre-schism ritual is not what the Antiochian Western writers are doing, etc. Because a lot of people believe that about us, and that's because that actually was used as a reason to discount baptism of even our people, which is a sacrilege. Let me see. Are there any true Orthodox that receive World Orthodox by confession? I'm gonna go with a straight hard no on that one. I haven't heard of cases of that since at least the 90s. And that, it wasn't common then. Death to Compromise asks over here, would any natural body of water be considered living water? Living water is specifically moving water, even if it's slight movement of water. So streams would be considered living water, things connected to streams. Ponds are not living water. While some ponds may be relatively clean and you could do a baptism in them, it's not recommended. Plus, on top of that, there's more of a chance of waterborne disease with still bodies of water. So living water is ideally moving water, even if it's slight.
Have you heard of people ever going and using the ocean or something like that? Have you ever?
I was baptized in the ocean.
Okay, all right.
I was baptized on Plymouth Bay in Massachusetts.
Yes. Okay.
That was interesting because Father George, the priest who baptized me, he said, now we just have to find a place to baptize you. And I said, but aren't we right next to the beach? And he's like, that's a very good point. Next thing you know, there I was on the beach getting baptized. So let me see.
I seem to recall maybe seeing pictures about in Greece people being baptized in the Mediterranean or something like that.
Oh yeah, and that sort of stuff still happens in warmer temperatures.
Yeah.
Father Methodius says, I meant specifically the priests, deacons, and any clergyman should be grooming. Yes, there's a good grooming younger men who combine godly courage and other spiritual gifts. Yes, Father Methodius at spring-fed lakes. Yep, there's got to be movement, or they're not living. Okay. Sunrise. Father, do you have any good book recommendations about learning about actual Western Rite Orthodoxy? A lot of the time it just seems like Anglican RC parishes are converted and keep most things. 3 words. St. Gregory's Press. Look on Lulu. Anything from our press, from St. Gregory's Press, is pre-schism. It has documentary evidence. We use it and have been using these things for 5 decades now, 6 decades. They work. They're Orthodox. And again, I always recommend our new prayer book simply because it's in color and really cool. So yeah, that's.
Oh, I got a question.
Yeah.
What about children's books? Are there anybody who publishes good Orthodox children's books?
I'll be honest with you, I'm not the right person to ask about that because my children are older, and we didn't have too many. We had a couple of saints' lives that were written for children, stuff like that. But there are attempts at writing children's books. I just have not reviewed them.
Father Joseph, I'm very, very difficult to stay awake. I'm gonna have to head out. Okay.
I understand.
I'm about to fall asleep. All right. I'll talk to you later. Okay, benedicite.
Okay. Suffering Orthodoxy says, thank you, Father. That makes sense. Let me see. Reader John says, overseas under the very old churches are springs of very, very cold water. Yeah. And that's those can be useful in many ways, not just in terms of when they come up in for baptism, also personal wells, etc. So let me see here. We are actually now in the 21st minute of the 3rd hour. So we have passed the 2-hour mark. Once again, this is where I'm going to put this sign up, where it's just, where is it? Okay, I think I may have deleted our question. Well, here's questions, comments closed. We're going to probably take whatever's left. There's not much going on left in the cafe, but we're going to close off comments here on the YouTube, unless it's a super chat. And I think we're going to go for another couple of minutes. And after that, we're going to let it go. We're going to close out at the half hour. So that would be just around 11 o'clock. But in any case, let me see here. So that's we've touched upon some useful stuff, I think. And it is, once again, I do want to remind that even though it is best to baptize in living water, it's not like if you can't find living water, it doesn't happen. You can use a baptistry, a pool, etc. It's just not ideal. But then again, baptizing in living water in the winter is also not ideal.
The issue we have here in Louisiana is that all of our water is brackish, which is a mix of salt water and fresh water, and it's usually very nasty. And there's also alligators, so no one wants to get in the living water down here.
Okay, that I completely understand. So that makes a lot of sense. Father Boniface, Suffering Orthodoxy, says, Father Boniface, check out Potamitas Press. They have a children's synaxarion for each month that is illustrated. And that is a good point. Very good. And I should add that I will be most likely reviewing this book within the next few days. Yeah, that's killing water, Father Methody says. Gators. This is the life of Saint Dionysius the Areopagite. It is actually a fantastic text, and I will do the proper shout outs for it, but that's going to be something that we will be discussing soon. I will eventually get back to on resistance to evil by force. I know that a lot of people have been waiting for that. I just I can't do everything. But
well, I want to say thank you, Suffering Orthodoxy, for that suggestion. There, I'll look it up.
Awesome. And let me see here. And Benedetto de Norcia says it was cold enough in the font last month. Yes, I imagine it probably was many years to you. Benedetto was baptized at the Abbey about a month ago. Father Methodius says mostly, yeah. I mean, if there's alligators in the water, no. Stop suggesting things that'll kill people.
I'm giving people facts because lots of people think that alligators are like crocodiles and they're man-eaters. They're not.
Yeah, but
I mean, I want to
kill
just.
A person?
Okay, this is what I'm saying. Don't go up to an alligator. That's stupid. But you also don't have to freak out if you see one.
Yeah, I'm still going with stay away from them.
Yeah, stay away.
Okay,
well, we had a crackhead in Lakeland going up lake, and the gator went after him.
Once you started with crackhead in Lakeland. Okay. Reader John.
You know what happened? I know the nurse that was attending to him, and she said that when he said bye, she said, "See you later, alligator."
Oh wow, that's harsh. Reader John,
she didn't mean it.
Reader John does ask in the YouTube, did anyone ask what Father had for dinner? Nope, did we? I think we've actually we're at 4 minutes to go. I don't, and the questions and comments are closed. I don't think you get to find out what he had for dinner. I think you missed it. You missed your window. Unless I will say, because he did donate $4.99.
So I better answer.
I don't know because he didn't donate to you.
Well,
he donated to me.
Well, yeah, I hear you.
We don't know, Reader John. We don't know. I mean, let's see. Okay, they're still in the chat talking about dangerous animals. So in any case, it's up to you, Father. We have 3 minutes left before we shut down. If you'd like to reveal the contents of dinner, you are free to for Reader John, since he did.
All right. I had hamburger with onions and some potato and some seltzer water. And that's it. That's my strict diet to keep me alive. But I don't know. I'm testing the potatoes, whether I can eat them. I used to eat them, and so that's what I had for dinner tonight.
So you're using kind of an elimination diet, I guess, trying to figure out what you can eat and what you can't?
Well, I got a list of what I can eat, and the potatoes is a moderate reaction, but I get a 6-month layover, so I'll see what happens. So hopefully it'll be all right.
Last I checked, Sava, you had all of your limbs, but maybe if you've been recently arguing with an alligator, I mean, that could have changed. Reader John threw in $1.99. He just gave it some hamburgers, some potatoes, and water. So yes, he did answer it, but we appreciate the donation regardless. No.
But that's not much for a hamburger, though.
Yeah,
not much for a hamburger. I can't make a living on that.
Well, we still have to help get your channel set up also, Father, because I know that you wanted to set up a channel as well. And so I think that's going to be great. Building, we've got to build up, our Orthodox, our true Orthodox networks. I mean, somebody asked me, they said there's not really that much true Orthodox stuff on the internet, on YouTube. And I just, for the heck of it, began studying like how much there was. There are a lot of true Orthodox channels. And I mean, like, I'd say in English, there's over 50. In Greek and Russian added with that, there's at least 125 true Orthodox channels. So this is just like me and Bishop Enoch's channel, and God willing, Father Boniface's channel, that's just stuff from our synod. Like, I mean, Orthodox Traditionalist is on, and there's a lot of people on the GOCK side. They have one of the biggest channels in English with Orthodox tradition. There's ROAC channels. There's our Russian synod channels. There's Greek synod channels. They're like everywhere. There's true Orthodox African channels. I mean, like, there's a lot of channels. Like, there's and you don't always see the stuff. Like, I try to hit notifications for all of the international channels, and sometimes it'll be a month I won't see something. And yeah. Atomic Lead says YouTube has a disproportionate amount of true Orthodox content. I would argue it's a correctly proportionate amount of true Orthodox content. And we want more people to know about us, and we want more people to follow and join us. So I think that that's a good thing. One thing I will say is in the days of the earlier internet, like in the 90s, when it first started, we had true Orthodox had a disproportionate amount of internet content then too. Let me see here. EJ says, please send someone in the Lake Mary, Florida area to open a true Orthodox parish. Lake Mary. Where is Lake Mary?
It's an hour and a half from me.
Oh, wow. Okay. An
It's
hour and a
above
half north or south?
North.
Okay. Now, there's also the parish that you went, the GOCK parish, which is like an hour north of you, isn't it?
No, that's in St. Pete, right? Or
Okay.
Clearwater. That's an hour. That's an hour west. Yeah, it's heading over towards the Gulf.
Okay.
I'm in the middle, and that's going over towards the Gulf.
So
that's
Lake
an hour west.
Okay.
So Lake Mary is going to be. It's up north and in the middle, kinda. So that would be a good 2-hour drive to go to that church. Believe me.
Now Jonathan Britt says, EJ, you can go to St. John of Kronstadt and Bunnell. I don't know why you have. Leader John says, but you're the only one that has underground in the acronym. That is very true. Bunnell, North Orlando.
Kronstadt is an hour. I emailed him. Brunel is an hour north of him, and we are an hour and a half south.
Okay, so I mean, you got a little driving, but you got some options there.
Yeah, or not. I could be an hour and 15, but driving is hey, if you can find a TOC church within an hour and a half, you're doing good. I remember driving in an hour and a half to Protestant churches that I was dedicated to, but one way. Yeah. I went from Lancaster County over to Westminster, Maryland.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I would say honestly, what I would suggest, because you do have options within 2 hours, is try to reach out. And if you really want something in your area, once you've established with a parish, consider doing a reader mission at your house every other week. If you get the blessing of your bishop, etc., that might be the easiest way to build. If you really do have a community around you that's willing to listen. Let me see here.
And what I plan to do with my hermitage is, get it fixed up. So if somebody visits, well, we got a meal, you spend some time, relax, and then make your trip back. But or even an overnighter if necessary.
Yeah, that's
but I agree. There's have a reader set up little satellites, and then you can have your priest come out and visit from time to time, or you can make your pilgrimage to his place. It works, both ways. But that's the only way. You're not going to, we are short on staff, and so
that's an understatement.
I know. So we need people to just, hang in there and then make a trip. And believe me, you will be blessed. I mean, you put the effort in, you get what you put in. I mean, you get what you put into it, you'll get out of it, and the Lord will bless.
Oh, that's sad. Father Methodius says I may be coming to Florida to decommission a church. They haven't told me the name of it yet, but I'm the decommissioner. Sorry to hear that, especially considering how much is going on in Florida. But we'll see. Maybe it'll turn around in a different way.
Where in Florida? That's what I'd like to know.
9. Okay, EJ says I have 9 kids and cars pretty old to travel 1 hour and 1 hour back. Yeah, I feel like that's the renting and that's the rent a van moment kind of thing. But definitely, it's not willing. We'll see. God willing, there maybe we'll see what can be done. And it's something that I mean, if you're my thing with that situation, EJ, is if you have a large family and you can't move. I mean, if it's an hour and a half distance, we're talking about possibly, you're talking about a mass reception, a mass baptism, or I don't know your personal situation. But if you have options and priests around you within an hour or two, you may want to offer them gas money and try to find, if possible, living water, otherwise a way of doing a baptism. Maybe see if they can come out and visit. I mean, because I can understand having a lot of kids. That's tricky, but it's also an opportunity. So that's
I could do that. We could work it out. I don't think that'd be a problem.
Well, yeah. EJ, if you want to reach out to Father Boniface on that,
he has, and so
okay.
And one time, and then just give me another email, or if you want to call me, and we can talk it over, and we'll see what we can do. I mean, I'll talk it over. Yeah.
All right, and Father Methodius, it sounds like EJ needs to learn to do Typica. Yes, that is handy for the weeks that you don't have service, absolutely. But if you're already in touch with Father Boniface, I would probably suggest keep that line of communication open, because that makes a lot more sense. It's better if it's an hour and a half trip, it's better to move one person than to move 10.
Yeah.
Father Boniface said he will baptize in the Everglades. Is that
no,
true?
I didn't say that. No, but we'll set up a gator trap,
Unseen Warfare says it's the true faith, EJ. That's why, my brother. Anyway, all right. Well, we are now way over time. We're now at the 36th minute of the third hour. We've never made it that far. Well, we have a few times. We've broken the 4-hour mark. We've broken the 3-hour mark, I should say. But I think we're, it's good that we're seeing progress. I mean, glory to God. If we can bring your family into the true Orthodox Church, that's a big thing. For Father Methodius says gators are mostly harmless, says Sava. I think we all agree. Sava's opinions on gators.
But we got a new invasive species in Florida, the python.
Oh yeah, no, that I know what that came from. That came from people in Miami buying stupid exotic pets. That was I actually attended a park ranger service. It was like a kind of an educational, kind of like a free education sort of thing, where we had somebody from the National Park Service talking about it, and they mentioned this was in Miami, that the reason for the invasive species of pythons was because of the number of stupid people in Miami who were buying them as pets. No offense to people in Miami, I love you, but to the people who bought pythons, you have caused massive destruction and really should be ashamed of yourself. Durnan Iron Knuckles says Jesus multiplied fish and the Father multiplies gators, I guess. All right, and with that, it looks like we're kind of got the last comments. Just make sure they finish the baptism before the gator gets close. Reader John says, how about this? We're just not going to use water that has a gator in it. I think that's easier. You get one of those feeders that they have at Tractor Supply for $100. Less that, easy to fill, easy to reuse. Instead of bringing people over to the Everglades.
And we tell people before we baptize them in Florida, do not drink Gatorade.
Why?
Because it aids the gators.
Ah, got it. Okay. I thought that was about the football team, but all right. Anyway, okay. So with that, we have now devolved into the childish. And with that, I must say we're done. So let's boot out the cafe. So long, cafe. We've been glad to have you. You can always go to frosenoscafe.com for more chats and for more history and forums and fun stuff like that. But they're gone now. So anyway, everyone, hold on. And I'm going to just exit full screen here. And I'm going to just say goodnight all to the cafe chat. Okay. And death to compromise because womp womp, atomic lead. Death to compromise because you've managed to put up a user a thing. I don't know what that is, but it's purple and it's crying, so I put it up because it's weird. I guess people want to put up weird emojis. I'll put them up. But yeah, we're at 2:39:28. It is now 12 after 11 Eastern Standard Time. And so with that, I am just going to quickly say that I want to thank everyone. I want to thank Sava. I want to thank Bishop Enoch, Father Boniface. I want to say thanks to our listeners, to those who asked questions, had comments, who sent in super chats. We really appreciate that because it helps us. And to those who support our mission, support the channel. We at NFTU need your help. Support us by subscribing or donating at nftu.net, on Give, Send, Go, or on Odyssey. We remember all of you in our prayers, and thank you for all the support for NFTU. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a good night, everyone. May God bless you. In the Father, Son,